Hello there, Sir from 17 once again. This is my Fashion Police Squad. Make sure it's Haute Couture walkthrough. This is being played on the PC. I was using a Pulsar Mini, is it X2 Mini? Very, very good mouse, very interesting, ergo shape. And I was using it on an Artisan Zero mousepad, extra soft, which is a really, really good pad. Profoundly good pad, very expensive, but I think the extra soft is a bit too soft. It doesn't affect you when you use it in-game, but it definitely feels kind of awkward when you're browsing. So I think I found my Artisan thickness, and it's definitely soft. Anyhow, for the people who have no idea what I was just talking about, I do apologise. This is a walkthrough, of course. First-person shooter that's been released. The developers of this game are doing things that I am really, really pleased with, and the first of which was hooking me up with a key to the game. And if you're new to the channel, and this is the first video you've stumbled across, God help you, but I did a walkthrough for the demo for this game a couple months back when it hit Steam. A member of my community, who didn't buy me a Tesla and thus will remain unnamed, told me about it, and I looked into it, and it turns out it was right up my alley. And as you can see from the gameplay immediately here, we are running around with our fashion colour shotgun, and we are fixing crimes against, you know, the finer senses of tailoring and stitching and all the great things that make clothing and garments so wonderful to look at. And we're going to be doing so using a belt and using a variety of unique tools, and the game is split up into a handful of chapters. And fundamentally, you'll be moving around the levels, taking on the fashion atrocities, finding some secrets, doing a little bit of platforming, and I cannot recommend the game highly enough. And you already know this if you saw the other video, and my opinion hasn't really changed. The game is superb. It's been getting some patches since it was released, and every patch seems to be making it one step closer to being even better than it was when it came out. But there's one thing that needs to be said, especially if you're going to be playing this on Haute Couture. This game is not quite there yet on its balance, and you're going to see it expressed in the gameplay, because when the elements all coalesce, the game gets really interesting and really exciting and quite demanding, and it can be very, very challenging. And I believe it's just because it didn't quite get the testing and the attention that a difficulty like that kinda needs. So I would imagine in about a couple of months, once they've hit on it and listened to a lot of the critiques and a lot of the forums and a lot of the players, I think they'll tweak a few things. But what you will see is, you'll see 90% of the missions I will barely take any hits. And, well, I say I'll barely take any, you know, crazy damage or die. And then you'll get to moments where the difficulty ramps up tenfold. So you can be very comfortable for most of the adventure as long as you're able to move and shoot and use all your first-person shooter experience, but then you hit these brick walls, and the brick walls feel more so like they weren't balanced to be that fun, rather than actually legitimate challenges. Now this is our first new enemy being introduced here on top of the standard salaryman, which is the dudes on the scooters. And you can belt these guys, you can use your little charge gun here, which again works a little bit like the lightning gun from Quake, but it gives you a bit of a passive lock. And I do think on the hardest difficulty the passive lock should be gone. You should have to track that enemy, you should have to have good aim, he should be legitimately dangerous. And one of the ways they could balance that, if they think that that's a bit too demanding, is you could lower his life a little bit, make it so that he doesn't have quite as much HP, but the tracking is 100% human and not machine assisted. But the levels that shine really, really strongly are the later ones and the boss levels when it comes to the balance not being quite there. Every boss fight you take on in this game is kind of a little bit obnoxious. And it's not because they're not good ideas, it's not because they're not fun fights. Casually, I found all of them to be really, really cool, and they've got some nice nods and some nice winks. But when it comes down to playing them on the hardest difficulty, the balance between your damage and their damage is just not there. So they kill you insanely quickly, and you have to go up against these guys, no matter how good your aim is, no matter what gun you use, you have to shoot them for a long time. And I'm a huge proponent of aim should be rewarded, and the stronger your capacity to play a game should be reflected in your ability to succeed. And outside of maybe the final boss and maybe the one that transforms a lot, like, I find it very difficult to do anything more effective than just simply shoot the boss. And of course, this could be my inexperience, it could be my ignorance, and if it is, human error. But I have experimented with the Hugo Boss boss for a decent amount of time on both the demo and the main game. And I can honestly tell you that it doesn't feel like you do anything different to this dude, depending on how close you are with the shotgun, depending on if you use the stitch gun, you know, like you use the belt on him and it doesn't really resonate. It seems like a very linear and highly, you know, scripted sequence that you can't really expedite in any way. And I'd love to see some of that change a little bit, maybe give him some crit spots on his face that do more damage, a multiplier of some sort. Maybe give proximity a multiplier as well, because the closer you are, the more difficult it is to engage, because they do a lot of damage and they're very accurate. But I would like to see a couple of things tweaked so that they're not quite as, you know, infallible as they are right now. But that was the end of Mission 1, guys. That was dull business. It's a really, really fun opener. It gives you a nice idea of what the game is, and you get to see your time, you get to see your crime solved, your swag, and your secrets. And if I knew more about the game, I would have tried to find some of those and bring those to you, but I'm trying to cram at the moment as many walkthroughs as I can, because we're getting into the good ad revenue, and I want to make a conscious effort to kind of capitalize on that, and hopefully YouTube can be a bit more lucrative for somebody who's not very good at it. But we start immediately on the second one. Was it loose business? And we've got the standard salarymen guys that you're going to be taking on with your shotgun. But going back on the topic of balance, the bosses are going to be jarring difficulty walls of, oh wow, I'm immediately dead and I was nowhere close to winning, and then when you beat them, you'll take no damage, because a lot of the times it can be all about how you play it and the situation, and it escalates really quickly. So you could say that that's a bit of a skill check, but I don't think shooting a boss 100 times is a skill check. I really don't. But then we come to the levels, so the further through the game you get, the more you will come across new enemy variants, and the more they'll be mixed into the flow of the hierarchy of enemies. Some of them are very simple and easy, and you will just circumvent them quickly. Some of them really bring quite the multiplier and the alteration to what's going on in the game. Some of them I think are a little bit underused. This is a feature that's completely underused in my opinion. They introduced this idea of propaganda that you can take down on the walls that affects the colour scheme and makes it monochromatic. What I would have liked this to do here is I would have liked this to be a debuff. I think that these signs could have debuffed you in some way, maybe make you take more damage or do less damage or something along those lines, slow you down or something like that. Because then you would have to prioritise on getting rid of the propaganda in it to enable you to play correctly. And when you put a sequence like that where you have this passive element that is affecting your playstyle, and then you add in all your enemy types, it turns into something interesting and demanding. And I don't even remember killing those signs on any other level but this. It doesn't seem to come back. It's like the developers completely forgot about it. And I don't know why that is. Maybe I forgot. Maybe I've just brain farted on a few. But now we take on the dude in the ill-fitting suit. This is the big guy that throws the briefcases at us. And you have to put the tailor-made on and shoot him. And when he throws the briefcases, they will explode. And his accuracy is not to be doubted. He is incredibly accurate, and the splash is very generous. However, you can use the belt to anti-air the projectiles and whip them out of the skies. It's not always the thing you should be doing, because I feel like when you focus on doing something like that, you may be not being as effective in other areas, but it is definitely a good strategy for staying alive if you need to stand still. And the gimmick of Fashion Police Squad is you can't use every gun to kill every enemy. It just doesn't work that way. Instead, there is a very deliberate tool for each of the enemies, and sometimes there is a combination of tools that will enable you to kill them and deal damage and be effective, and finding out those combinations is super important. So that weapon wheel is a tutorial. I do not recommend using the weapon wheel. If you're playing on mouse and keyboard, weapon wheels should not exist. There is no reason to use them. Weapon wheels exist for limited control schemes to make it easier for the player to get access to things, because they only have a limited amount of buttons. It is literally a burden of a controller. Using a weapon wheel on PC is you openly admitting you cannot use your instrument to play, and that's something you need to fix. And I don't say that as a judgment, I don't say that to make you feel bad. I say that because it's true and you need to hear it. You have 100 keys on a keyboard. There's no planet that you can't find a binding that works for you and work on it and get comfortable and use it, you know? And in this game, it's ironic that I say that because you can't rebind the key bindings for your weapons. And I do not understand this at all. It's my one huge criticism of this game. A lot of my other criticisms are all personal and fundamental and design perspective. But as far as mechanics and player experience goes, you can rebind almost everything but the weapons, and I don't understand it. To me, it's mind-boggling. And this is a game where you do not press crouch. This is a game where you don't press sprint. This is a game where you don't really interact with many things outside of dialogue. This is a game where a lot of the times you don't even have to reload. You don't melee attack the same conventional way with F. So you have the opportunity to rebind Q, E, R, F. You can do G, you can do X, C, V, B. You have all these buttons around your hand that enable you to move easier with WASD and bind them so that you can swap between the weapons and feel very confident. And the example that I would use, if you watch my Quake walkthrough, my bindings in Quake were pretty much all of those buttons. I think I had like the shotgun on Q, I had the nail gun on E, I had the grenade launcher on C, I had the rocket launcher on F. I could always be strafing, moving, jumping, and putting my weapons on, and I didn't need to rely on the 1 to 8, or whatever it was. And you totally can do that if you prefer that, but for me, anything that hinders my fingers when I'm going back and forth, it generally means I don't want too many buttons above me if I can avoid it. It's one of my personal preferences. So I like to alternate with bindings around what my hand is doing to make it a bit more comfortable and a bit more effective. This game doesn't let you do it. This to me is one of the gravest things you can do when it comes to mouse and keyboard. I just don't believe in limiting the player in such a way. And I'm going to show it you here, guys. When I come into key bindings to have a look what's going on, and there's no place for me to go into the weapons. There's just next weapon and previous weapon. And it's kind of unfortunate. Again, though, there's always the opportunity that I missed it, and if I did, thank you for letting me know in the comments, and just completely remove that critique. But the swag here that we're picking up, as you can see on the screen, is armor in this game, and the game does cover a very similar system of HP and armor thresholds, and a lot of the times you don't have many opportunities to find too much armor. I felt like it didn't seem like the discovery of moving around the levels really led to lots of caches full of armor to really boost you up. It did kind of feel like the swag was more of a collectible than something utility-wise for the player to manipulate. And I would have loved to see that be a little bit different, because one of my favourite things in Doom and Quake and stuff like Duke Nukem is being able to find access to beefing your character up and feeling stronger, and knowing that when you explore you might find some hidden, corner or nook that's full of stuff that can help you out. And I feel like this game, that's one of the areas where I think Police Squad is kind of suffering, because it doesn't feel like there's really a reason to explore, and it doesn't feel like you're going to miss anything, because you get the weapons in such a scripted fashion. I don't think the capacity to find them early even exists. And it's features like that where the game stumbles a little bit on these old school conventions. But in spite of those issues, it's still an absolute delight to play, and a hell of a lot more fun than any of the AAA shooters I've played since probably Doom Eternal. And of course stuff like Shadow Warrior 3 is also very, very fun. But the guy we just took on there is the Vape Nation kid. He's the dude with the baggy trousers, he's vaping, and the way you kill him is by using the belt. And the belt can be charged to do the biggest stun that it affords, and it's really, really good for that. And then another one of the uses is what you're seeing right now here, which is one of the platforming sequences. The belt platforming in this game works best in combat, in my opinion. When they put them in the environment for you to use them or not use them, depending on how you want to play, I really like the idea of that. When they implement it for platforming, I do find it to be a little bit hit and miss. Sometimes it's really fun and quick and it makes you feel really fast and capable, and sometimes they overstay their welcome a little bit. And I don't really play these games for platforming, so that's probably more me than anything else. But as a whole, I do think the game does a decent job of breaking up a lot of the sequences, and because the central mechanic is so enjoyable to do, and because you do feel capable and you do feel like you're constantly moving forward, I think it can carry itself without the gimmick of adding a jump. That being said, this belt works way better than the grappling hook in Shadow Warrior 3, because you feel the speed here, and you can get so fast that you can actually sabotage those sequences and not be able to make one of the pegs or one of the poles because you're just going too fast. And any game that lets you do that adds an extra element of skill to it, because it means that you need to learn to control it and you need to understand whether or not you are too slow, too fast, or just right. And if you can apply that Goldilocks principle to what you're doing in a game, there's your skill floor and there's your skill ceiling, and every gradation in between is just gravy. But here is the biggest fight of this chapter. It's a large sequence with all the enemies you've witnessed thus far. You want to definitely make sure you pay attention to the scooter guys, because they're very accurate, they're very fast, and when they hit you, they knock you a large period of space. But something to bear in mind on this difficulty too. The hardest difficulty is, by its very definition, the hardest. The damage that you take is incredibly high. You go down really, really fast. And the enemy's aggression and movement and life seems a little bit amped, but nothing too crazy. I didn't really feel too much of a difference as far as that goes, but you definitely feel like you're on a harder difficulty, especially later on when things start to double team you and triple team you and do a lot of damage. But this is going to lead us into the end of this chapter, and then we're going to be moving into the final chapter of the demo, which is the Hugo Boss fight. But there you go, Mission 2, Loose Business. And I love these fashion catwalks that happen at the end of the levels. It's such an interesting touch, and it's such a splice of character and colour. But if I did have to bring it down in my inevitable dark cloud mentality, it would be that I wish there was more to it. And it leads me to how I think that this game could have had a rather interesting score system, and then they kinda didn't do it. So for a game where we're correcting people's fashion, I think it would have been really nice if you could incorrectly correct their fashion and score an inferior amount of points for doing so. It would have been cool if you could fix their fashion in any mannerism, but you didn't get graded correctly, and you could have got bonus swag for doing it right, you could have got bonus fab for doing it right, you could have just got an arbitrary score system and at the end get the best rank. Because to me, I don't mind all the guns being effective and all of them working on all enemies, but you should make it so the ones that are intended to hurt them are the ones that give you the most points, and as long as you memorize how to kill everything in the right way, you get rewarded for your score. And I think if you did it in such a sense, the people who just want to use the most effective strategy, like Darkside Phil in Doom 2016, using the super shotgun on everything and never changing weapons once, those players will get a terrible score. Whereas if you're willing to engage with the game and use all the features, you will be able to get those good ranks and feel much better about your performance. And that to me adds an extra level of depth. And the best part would be the catwalk at the end. Your catwalk would be immaculate, because all the people walking down it would look amazing and look as good as they physically can look. Whereas somebody that just goes through the game and doesn't quite understand what's going on, they might have, you know, a bunch of people with some questionable colour clashing and some questionable hairstyles and stuff. And I think that that would have added an extra element of both humour and fun for the player. And I don't know the dev team well enough to be like, yo guys, I've got these great ideas, I'll send them you. And I don't want to be arrogant enough to think that they would give a single fuck and that it's in any way my place to change their vision. Because I love what they've done, and I think with a couple of tweaks here and there, it could be even more exalted than it is. And I want to reinforce the fact that this game was like $13 on Steam. And the campaign is about 5 hours long, if you really go through it quite quickly. But it's 5 hours where you're constantly kind of guessing and constantly smiling because it's silly, it's fun, it's got a good sense of style, it runs well, it looks great. Like, this is actually really hard as well, this moment here. And there's a couple of chandeliers above you that you can use the belt to swing on, but whenever I did it, I found I got hit more. And I don't know why, because you'd think being mobile would be the best strategy. So instead, I just like to circle this room and do a lot of attacking. And what's going to happen? When I kill all but one enemy, I'm going to speed the footage up here, guys, because I was trying to test if the HP would respawn. I wanted to see if I could linger around in this sequence and just kill time until those cocktails, those mocktails came back and maybe beef me up a little bit, but it just doesn't work that way. It's finite, and I didn't want to fail this mission because I died here about 2 or 3 times, and truth be told, I didn't feel like I died because I was playing badly. I felt like I died because the boss didn't work right. You know, the damage threshold, the ability to engage with him, the way he throws the gold. Like, you can crouch behind some of the sofas, but sometimes he still hits you, and I don't like this fight. I think this is the worst fight in the game as far as bosses go. It's just not great. He's too beefy, there doesn't seem to be any strategy, you don't have many weapons, so it just kind of feels... And you can probably whip the gold and maybe stop it from hitting you. That could have been something I could have done, but instead I just kind of got quite lucky here and War of Attritioned him with movement. And there goes the CEO, Hugo Boss. But you can go up on the balconies as well, but the balconies don't seem to be all that advantageous either. But there goes Mission 3. And back on the topic of the difficulty, which I didn't mention, and I should have mentioned, is that the 2 levels at the end, one of them is the like boiler room of a ship, and it's incredibly punishing. Environmental hazards, some of the most frustrating enemies in the game, big gauntlets, and then the one area of the mechanics where you can absolutely critique, which is, unfortunately, the checkpoints. But before we get to that, I've left a little bit of these screens in here, guys, so you can see how the game is structured, and you can see some of the cute features of the map and whatnot. And then this here, the Dress to Impress screen, the more you play, the more you'll unlock, but I will only be using business as usual and less is more. And I don't recommend that, because it does make the game a lot more difficult. I hope that they'll add more of those in the future, because the idea of wearing different outfits, even though you don't get to see it, because when you're playing, you know, you're just playing as the dude, I think it's really cool that that exists, and I like the idea of being able to come in here with some custom setups and some custom builds and just absolutely destroying the game. And when the game was first coming out and I was really excited for it, I thought that the turncoat, the deep coat, I forget what they call him, you know, the guy that you first bump into, the noir stylist man who gives you the fab glove. When you first meet that guy, I thought that he was going to be your upgrade dude. I thought he was going to sell you your upgrade paths, your upgrade tree, and give you all different skills and modulations to everything. Secondary functions, secondary fires, tertiary fires. I thought this game was going to go a full-blown Turok and insert first-person shooter with a million abilities, you know. I thought that's where that was going to go. The game doesn't go there, guys. There are no real upgrades in this game at all. There's no skill trees, there's no abilities, there's pretty much nothing outside of the toolkit that you pick up along the way. And there's nothing wrong with that, but if you go into the game expecting that to be a thing and you don't get it, I can't say I wasn't disappointed, you know. One of the biggest problems with playing a lot of games, and covering games, and talking about games, is that you get to this point of almost designing the game yourself in your brain. You know, you come up with these anticipations and expectations and things you would have done and things you would have tweaked. So, as soon as I saw the systems at play, I wanted a bit more complexity, I wanted a bit more depth, I wanted a nice breadth of depth as well, so there would be things I could mess around with. And to me, that increases the longevity of the game and what you're going to get tucked into when you start playing. And the game has a lot to tuck into and have fun with, but that would have been one of the easiest ways, and I say this with, you know, 0 dev time on this development team. just add it upgrades, guys. Just add up skill trees. Just add all these things from RPGs that are permeating into other genres and frustrating people that don't like them. And I do think that there'll be a lot of people that are happy it doesn't have that shit. Because some people, when they start seeing numbers and they start seeing trees and abilities and paths and stuff and having to make choices, some people just don't enjoy it. But I think for a game such as this, it could have really just ascended it beyond the shooter that it is. That said, the shooter that it is sublime. The mouse input is good, the shooting is fun, everything feels relatively satisfying. Even on the hardest difficulty, you know, some of the enemies do take a bit of a pounding, but none of it is crazy bullet sponge. I wish they were a bit weaker. And all the enemies that are generally the bosses. And then the bosses, I think the bosses are going to be toned down a little bit. They just have too much HP, you shoot them for too long, and a lot of the times what they demand you to do is just a little bit too boring for how long it lasts. And I don't know if you would agree, guys, but I'm not the player on PC with the worst aim. I can I can use my whole arm, I can point at people's heads. And even then, there's no way to speed any of that up. And if you can't use your skill to speed something up, I think that something needs to be changed. But that's just me. Anyhow, this is a beautiful level, this one too. I love the architecture, I love the colours. The soundtrack in this game, as you might be hearing a little bit in the background, is incredibly catchy. It's got these wonderfully tasty hooks every so often. It feels like something out of Beverly Hills Cop, or out of a Sonic game, like a bonus level. It's got some really nice instrumentation. And this level combines interiors and exteriors quite well as the platforming that it's teasing you with. Because getting used to the platform is going to be really helpful later on when you do more of it. But we pick up the large mocktail, we do more of the flipping, and you'll notice that there's a lot of pop culture references that have been slightly amended. The game is obsessed with mentioning popular culture, so if you like little nods to things, you're definitely going to have a giggle here or there, but it must be said, some of the references are quite dated, and personally, I don't mind a good dated reference because I still find them to be quite entertaining. And sometimes the more dated they are, the better it is on the entertainment factor because it's just like, oh wow, that's so retro. But if you're one of those people that throws around the word cringe a whole lot, then you might not enjoy it quite as much, because it's definitely not going to be up to your standard of hitting the fringe of, you know, what's happening on the zeitgeist of social media. But that lady there, I need to talk about her. The hag that turns up that's wearing the horrendous burlap sack, you have to kill her with the tailor-made, and you can actually charge a whip to stop her completely and then punish her with the tailor-made too. She's probably one of the hardest enemies in the game at this point, because she fires like, I don't even know if it's fart cloud or if it's just like bad BO or some kind of, you know, halitosis of the breath. But she fires a stink cloud, and the stink cloud does a lot of damage and it permeates everywhere. This thing lingers too. It's one of the areas of the game, again, that I would absolutely change, because when she dies, her area of effect stays around. And I can understand area of denial during a fight, but when you're in like a small hotel building and there's only her and no one else, and her effect lingers for ages so you can't move forward or you'll just bleed your life, it feels like shit. It feels padded as hell. It doesn't feel like it's augmenting an encounter. It feels like she's just, now you have to stand there like in an old shooter and regenerate for 15 seconds. And does anybody want to, like, lay behind a chest-high wall ever again? We've been doing that for 30 years now. Like, it's a long time of the whole chest-high wall regeneration garbage. We need something a little different. And I still think Black Ops 4 fixed that, and then nobody ripped it off. But the health in this is very old school. You know, you've got your Dooms, your Quakes, your Wolfenstein, whichever one you want to use as contrast. It's very much in that ilk. But it's just so fun too. You can see the pseudo 2D, 3D where things rotate with you like classic Duke Nukem and the Doom sprites. It's just, there's such a joy to it as well. And I'm not one of those people that is easily swayed and easily swoons over this idea of, you know, new hardware making old software, and doing it with the power of our new techniques and what we've learned in the interim. That to me is not something that you're immediately going to get a pass on because you tickle my nostalgia. If anything, I find it to be fucking lazy and I want innovation. That being said, when it's done right, you cannot help deny that there's a special feeling that tickles that part of your childhood that remembers. And we should talk about the paparazzi guy as well. So the paparazzi guy is one of those dudes that doesn't seem too difficult, but he will sneak up on you. And every time he takes a photo with his camera, he's going to damage you. So you need to swap to the, I call them the underpants gnomes, but it's the fashion gnome. And if you throw it on them, throw like 3 of them on them and they'll chip them down sufficiently so that you don't have to worry about them. And don't sleep on that gnome ability either, because it can be used to interrupt enemies that have casts. Later on, there's going to be a dubstep girl that does this interesting area of effect on the floor, and she can be really dangerous because she's tanky, she's quite mobile, and she's dangerous. But if you throw one of those at her, it will completely stop her from doing her animation. So you can attack her for ages, wait till the end of her cast, swap to the gnome, throw it on her, completely stop it, she has to start it again, and before she has a chance to finish casting, she'll die. And once you understand a setup such as that, it gets really strong. It's the same with any enemy that can be stunned with the belt. You can belt stun somebody, shoot them, and then belt stun them again and keep them in a perpetual state of being stunned. And it works on even the dudes with the ill-fitting suits and even the salaryman, but because they attack so quickly, and because the stun wears out and they attack immediately, sometimes you'll eat a hit to the face before you get a chance to do it. So you want to be careful with being too aggressive on those guys. But later on, you're going to come across the Guy Fieri dude, who is a flaming enemy, and he casts like the Archvile, and you can just keep that guy permanently stunned. He can't do anything. And the game understands that that's how this works, and they want you to do that, so they put him in places where you can't do that later on, which I think is a really good idea. But that was the end of You Reap What You Sow, Chapter 4. We now get to see some of the results. We didn't do too bad, nearly 8 minutes on that one. We got all the crimes solved, we didn't get the swag, and we missed one of the secrets. Which, I wonder what happens when you get all the secrets. I hope it's something cool. But Mission 5, time to meet your tailor. Going back into these wonderful, like, strawberry buildings here in this estate. I really love the tailor made because it has infinite ammo and it's perfectly accurate. And I'm one of those people, me guys, where I don't really care for recoil in games. I don't care for screen shake. I don't care for bullshit. I want the gun to fucking work. When I point, I want the bullet to go there. So when I get a gun like this in a single player game, I'm really happy. The issue here is you can't use it on everything. So that's the one downside of it. But give me something accurate so I can practice my aiming and my tracking and I don't have to worry about reloading and I will love you forever. And even in multiplayer, I love those kind of guns, but you generally find, don't you, that players will gravitate towards guns that have no recoil because they can be more effective with them because they're ease of use. But here's another new mechanic. If you see any canopies or any piece of fabric, umbrella of that ilk, see anything like this, when you jump on it you will get this really, really nice bounce. This is another feature that I wish was a bit more predominant in the game, because I feel like they've got all these cool ways to put you in the air, but a lot of the times they don't give you the opportunity to do it. And I also think that there should have been an enemy that attacks you from being airborne. And I don't mean the sack lady who farts that gas everywhere. I mean an actual flying enemy that you could have contended with in the sky. Because to me, one of the biggest flaws of modern first-person shooter is they never ever give you any kind of aim check vertically. Everything is horizontal. That, like this, looking upwards in a first-person shooter is difficult because we don't train it. And having an enemy that moves in the air, that's fun to track and take on in such a manner, that's the kind of thing that I really, really, really enjoy. And if this game has something like that, I'm going to be really annoyed that I've said this, because I've completely forgot about it, because my memory's terrible. But that's the type of stuff I would have liked to see maybe a handful more enemies doing. I think that could have been really, really cool. And the bosses absolutely do this. The bosses fly around a lot. The final boss is on like a hoverboard flying around, and he is a perfect opportunity for you to track and to practice your vertical aim and your adjustment tracking and whatnot. But the rest of the game doesn't have anything like him, which is why he's so unique. And it must be said, if you're not confident in your aim, and everyone who transitions to mouse and keyboard, at first it's kind of intimidating and it's quite hard, because you know you think you're used to clicking recycle bin and you know my computer and everything, and then you start doing it in a 3D element and you realise that it's not just about clicking on heads, guys. Clicking on heads makes it sound easy. It's not that simple. I'm not saying it's hard, but I'm saying it's not what you think it is. If you think it's just, oh, aim and shoot, you'll win and everyone's good. That's not the case. It always reminds me of Darkside Phil. DSP always says, give me a mouse and keyboard and I'll destroy everybody, because he's got this impression that he's so good on mouse and keyboard from playing Unreal Tournament, you know, 20 years ago. But you can see from the way that Phil plays and the decisions that he makes when he plays first-person shooters that even if he had the best aim in the world, this dude is not going to be that fucking good at a shooter, and he's not going to be that much of a threat when it comes to how you fight him. Oh, when you fall off like that, guys, it takes a little bit of your life and it puts you in a weird spot. So there's a couple of sequences where I left myself falling off just so you could see where it put me, because I couldn't really edit it without it looking weird. So just be aware that falling off's not the end of the world, but it will be a little bit disorientating. But like, Phil thinks he's the best mouse and keyboard player in the world, and a lot of people do. But you know, when you fight against them and when you play online, there are more bad mouse and keyboard players than there are controller players. It's just universally true. The skill ceiling on mouse and keyboard is so high that the skill floor is also so low. And it's one of those things where it stretches that spectrum so wide that the average player on mouse and keyboard isn't very good. That being said, the average exceptional player on mouse and keyboard is really good, and that's when things get really confusing. But be careful here. If you don't have the right momentum, you won't fly how you need to fly, so be careful of that. But it is really cool that you can do it, and I'm a big fan. But vertical aim tests are absolutely my favourite, as we pick up the blue scissors, which is just a blue key, but I love that it's scissors. I really wish you could use the scissors, those Tailor scissors, as a weapon, as like a melee weapon, because there's something cool about watching people cut material and fabric with those massive scissors. And it just reminds me of stuff like Death Smiles, because it was one of Casper's weapons, and it reminds me of anime, where there's always a dude in an anime that's got some ludicrously oversized, you know, Tailor scissors or some weapon that doesn't make much sense to be a weapon, but in anime it's perfectly fine because you can cut buildings and stop bullets and everything. But that lady really is the only thing that challenges you vertically. And there is the dude that does the belly flop, so I suppose that kind of counts as a vertical test. But I would have liked a focused flying enemy. Like, imagine if they had some kind of fashion goose. Because let's face it, geese can be fucking atrocious. Those cheeky bastards can be the ultimate guard dogs. You piss off some geese and they start flying around and having a go at you and trying to peck you and stuff. And like, you could hit them and they could run away a little bit and just fly around in an odd pattern and then come back and try and peck you. I think that could have been so fun. A big old cool fashion geese with like a beret or something. But there's a couple of secrets to be found here that involve hitting the electrical boxes, which I think is a nice element. I wish there was more of it in the game, and maybe there is and I missed it, but I really didn't see too much of it as we hit the checkpoint and we move into this. Is it a plaza? Is it a piazza? Who knows? And then we have this guy. So this guy's legitimately bad on the hardest difficulty. On normal, you won't really notice too much with this dude with the tiny suit. And the idea of him is he moves around really quickly and he lays like a briefcase that blows up after a certain amount of time. And it's not a quick timer, so you've got plenty of time. And it telegraphs the circle of its effect. But the reason he is dangerous is he runs around at light speed dropping a bunch of area of denial, and the enemies that they put him with are going to be jacking you up and you're not going to get out of his radius, and it's all going to work together in tandem and turn into something really bad. This is a very clever enemy and a very frustrating enemy, and I like him because he is a dickhead. He's the dickhead that forces you to move. If you're very static and you like hide in one corner, this guy's going to come in the corner and he's going to bomb you. And his weakness is the secondary function of the Tailor made, which fires that sticky grenade, that Spider-Man grenade. And what you do is, the best thing to do is to stick a grenade at your feet and stand there, because he's going to come to you and he's going to drop a bomb and it's going to blow up and it's going to web him. And when it webs him, then you can attack him with the Tailor made and actually kill him just normally. So this was really cheap, this. I got spawned right on top of a scooter guy and he beat the shit out of me. I shouldn't have done that, guys. That was a mistake. And now I don't have much HP, so 1 or 2 attacks and I'm going to die. So I've got to be really careful. But just don't go back. That was my mistake. There was no reason to go back, but I did it because I want to kill people. But once you web him, if you web him again while he's webbed, when he recovers, he'll immediately be stunned again. And you can perma-stun lock him. So shoot him, stick a canister on him, and then continue to shoot him again, and he will not recover. If you manage to stun him and focus him, he dies really quickly. If you can't do that because the circumstance don't afford it, he does become quite an interesting threat. And I think it's an enemy done very well. Because it's not an enemy that's immediately going to absolutely destroy you like those genies in Shadow Warrior 3. But if you let him do what he wants to do, he becomes very dangerous. And thinking of Shadow Warrior 3, he's kind of like that cook, that chef. The one that just lays all the bombs and doesn't do anything, that's got a ton of HP. Like, he is a better version of that. Because that enemy, I don't think, really did anything that warranted it being the final enemy introduced, or the second to final enemy they introduced. Whereas this guy turns up on like Mission 4, Mission 5, and he is dangerous. He's really going to get you, you know, turning the camera and jumping around and getting out of those vicinities of his proximity bombs. But keep on pushing forward as we search for the red scissors. And I don't know if this game's coming to console, but I hope it is. Because you don't need, you know, a mouse and keyboard to play this. This would be absolutely fantastic on controller. And I hope people get a chance to have a go with it and play it and be reminded that we can still smile every so often on a video game, you know? And I know that I'm not the standard demographic. I'm not like everybody. I do have rather high expectations and tastes, and I do not suffer garbage anymore. I don't even suffer mediocrity anymore. I just get it out of there. But this game really did make me smile, and I think if it made me smile, it can make a lot of people smile. And the developers deserve it too, because I don't know what they've done. I haven't really had a chance to look into them. But I really can't sing the game's praise enough. If this was a AAA title, and it had some of the features that I feel could be added and would absolutely make everything better, I think there's no reason this game couldn't be as important or as popular as any AAA shooter. Because I'd rather play this than the new Call of Duty, but I'd rather play with my own shit than the new Call of Duty, so it's not much of a compliment, you know? But even this, even using the movement like that, it doesn't seem as beneficial as it should, because that guy just lasered me anywhere with the briefcase. But I just like the fact that you have the choice. One of the things I really appreciate nowadays in games is the choice to play a certain way, or the choice to not. You know, I play so many games where I try to do something interesting with them and the game just says no. You know, some games are horrendously designed so that they just simply don't work when you play them a certain way. Some games really come alive when you change how you play them. It just goes to show how much that they focused on it and the attention to detail that they put into it. And I am doing a bit of a challenge run on this one, but the game isn't suffering because of it. If anything, the game is being more fun for me. And that's the whole reason, I think, to do a challenge run. You know, people come up with challenge runs to kind of denigrate what other people do. And I find it funny because they come up with like the most obnoxious challenge that's not even fun. And I think it stems from the fact that these people don't understand that people aren't trying to do the hardest thing in the world. They're trying to do something challenging that's a lot of fun. And if you don't see the fun and you don't understand the fun, I think that's where you lose the plot, isn't it? Because you see a lot of people say, like, why would you do that? What's the point? I don't understand. I used to see that a ton on the Dark Souls stuff, you know, with the no roll. Same with Elden Ring. Like, you do it without leveling up, and people would be like, why? Why wouldn't you level up? And it's an interesting thing, isn't it? Because my brain, when I see those videos, I go, oh my god, that's crazy. Look what this guy's done. Look how fucking impressive this is. This dude did this and this and this and this. That's really cool, right? My brain immediately goes to understanding what it is and then appreciating it on a level because I know how hard it is to do that. But you can't expect everybody to have your brain or your insight into what these things are. And that's the issue, isn't it? Some people just don't get it. And there's nothing wrong with not getting it either. And it's the same with, like, think of some of the projects that I've made in the past, like the live playthroughs especially. The amount of people that have asked me to upgrade my HP or got frustrated with me because I didn't upgrade my HP, even though the whole point of some of those playthroughs and some of those walkthroughs is to limit my HP. Like, those people get really frustrated, like legitimately mad, that I'm playing the game in a way that they do not understand the viability of it. And it's kind of funny, isn't it, that we can have such a strong opinion on that. And it does make me wonder sometimes when we project in such a manner, is that just our ego taking over and being like, why don't you play the game like me? Because when you linger around playing on Twitch enough, you notice that everybody wants to watch blind playthroughs, but then everybody wants to ruin them by forcing their philosophies on the player. And I find that to be like the strangest fucking double standard ever. Because you want to watch this person who has no experience in the game, and then you complain when they don't play it the way you play it with your level of expertise. Like, is that not the strangest bridge of consciousness right there? Like, they're forging their own reality, and it's this impossible standard that they'll never be pleased, and then the player who's playing will never meet the standard, so they'll never feel like they achieved what that person wants. And it just seems like you're setting yourself up to fail there a little bit. This is a really difficult fight as well, this one, on this level. They want you to use the Fab Glove in sequences like this, and a lot of the times when these moments turn up, I like to do them without the Fab Glove. I have nothing against it as a tool, I in fact think it's really funny. But I personally think it's a bit too strong and a bit too slow. So I would have made the Fab device maybe 1 to 2 slaps and then it turns itself off. Because you can kill a full room and then have 15 seconds to dance. And that to me, especially on the hardest difficulty, they should limit the efficacy of the glove. That being said, the end of this game on the ski slope level, which is ludicrously difficult and one of the hardest things I've done in a shooter for a while, all because of bad checkpoint, bad balance, that sequence would probably be like even worse than it already is without that feature, because that segment is a nightmare. I'm talking 50 times harder than the rest of the game. Like an old school, old fashioned, nobody played this fucking part. Like, it's really funny. And it comes right at the end of the game, which is kind of perfect. Because you have all that fun, and then you hit a brick wall. And it only took me 2 attempts, but because you have to do it slow, the way I decided to do it with my resources, those attempts were like 10 to 15 minute fights. And I don't know if you've ever fought for 10 to 15 minutes, but it feels like you're fighting for 10 hours. And it's all kinds of bad. And it all stems from me not using my rockets in an efficient manner because I assumed I'd get ammunition for them, and apparently I missed it. So hopefully when we play through to that part of the guide, I can explain this to you and I can say, guys, as much as this is tantalizing and you want to use this, don't do it. Because that final sequence, I don't know if there's a trophy for beating the game on Haute Couture, and I don't know if it's only challenging the way it was challenging because I'm wearing the basic outfit, but what I can say is that the demand on the player and the checkpoint provided, it's not enough. And it definitely, if I was in charge of the game, it would be being toned down in some subtle ways. And it's not even a case that it's too hard. It's not too hard. It just doesn't fit the rest of the game. And you elevate the rest of the game to be just as mean, and then it fits, or you tone it down, and then it makes a lot more sense. And I do think that a game should have difficult moments. I think it should have one moment that is arguably the most difficult. But I don't think that moment should be because of a shitty checkpoint and a really long room. Like, I wouldn't mind if it was 100 enemies in one encounter, as long as the checkpoint's at the start of it, and as long as it starts me with a decent setup. Like, that to me is the type of stuff I enjoy, you know? But that one is... oh my goodness. There's even a passive element that can hurt you, and it spawns randomly. And it's environmental too. Like, I can't even begin to understand what they were thinking. It's really weird. But we're going to talk about that when it turns up, because it's a long sequence. But I love this level. All the interior levels on this game are some of my favourites, because it brings out the Monolith fan in me. And I know that might sound like a bit of a dig, and it absolutely is, because Monolith like to do, you know, buildings that aren't quite finished being refurbished. The old Fear level design, but I loved it. You will never hear me complain about Fear's level design, because that aesthetic reminds me of Die Hard, and anything that reminds me of Die Hard, you're doing it right. So this definitely scratches my Die Hard, Fear, condemned itch with this subway. And what like self-respecting video game player doesn't like trains? Can you name a single bad train level? Like, train levels are so fun because there's just something sick. You know, in a movie, a TV show, or a video game, when they get on a train, something's going to kick off, something's going to go crazy. You're either going to be underneath it, like, you know, Steven Seagal. You're going to be on top of it, like Tom Cruise. You know, you don't know what's going to go on, do you? It could even be something like Speed. Trains always lead to fun things in popular media. And I'm all over a good train level. It's the same with a good boat level. Like a good boat level, nice cruise level. You know, don't mind the speedboat level, hell. I like the diversity of it. Like a pirate ship level, sign me up. But there's just so many things, isn't there, where you know you're going to have a good time. And for me, I like the subway levels. I like the close-quartered levels. I think they do a really good job. But this is going to introduce you to a movement mechanic using a water gun, which I think is really creative, but every so often it feels a little bit hit and miss when it comes to its detection. And I'm almost certain I'm doing it wrong, but it leads to a distrust with the controls. And when you, as a player, distrust the control scheme, you will never give it your 100% faith, and you will fail things you would have succeeded if you'd simply believed. So what I would do in the face of that is I would make it so that the water, when it comes towards the lip of a gap, so if you want to jump across the train tracks, if you wet that, as you get to the edge where you press jump, I would add a force multiplier on the speed. And I wouldn't make it too high, but I would make it high enough so that you will always comfortably make the jumps as long as you jump at the edge. Because there's a few times on this level where I've been going at full speed and I've jumped right at the last possible moment and I haven't even made the fucking jump. And when that happens, it makes you feel like shit. And admittedly, it might be bad timing, it might be bad depth perception, it could just be human error, but it does feel like what the fuck, you know, game, keep up. And I don't really like that. That's one of those things that I hold really dear. I love the idea of when it's me that's the limiting factor in a machine, you know. I like to feel like I'm pushing this to the limit and the limitation is me, not the game. Because when you get to those moments, it's like, remember the jumping in Uncharted where sometimes Nathan Drake didn't grab stuff? Like, remember in Mirror's Edge? When I talked about this in my walkthrough, where you'll jump towards a pipe and Faith doesn't grab the pipe. Like, you're literally headbutting the pipe. There's nowhere else you could be. And you don't hit it. And I feel in that moment that if I was a developer and I'd noticed any playtester doing that, I wouldn't be going, oh, that playtester's shit. I'll be going, more people are going to play this game like they do than the people who are really good. So why not balance it and moderate those kind of quality of life moments around a player who's going to get really frustrated that they didn't quite make it? And I'm not saying, you know, turn all platforming into brain-dead garbage. Like, I love complicated platforming when it's precise and it feels like you're in control. To me, it's when you fall when you shouldn't fall that ruins the core and the kernel of all platforming. And this is that gun, by the way, guys. This one's called the Wet Ones. This is easily one of the most interesting weapons in the game because it has the capacity to charge a secondary fire by using the primary fire. And you can actually put fire out with it, which is nice. But again, Daddy Chris and his critical mind has to pipe up here. They needed to give you a more interesting signifier to tell you that you were getting rid of the fire. When you hit the fire with this gun, there should be an effect. There should be an awesome sound. There should be something cool that tells you you're fucking with the fire, it's working, it's very satisfying. But it doesn't have it. Like, do you hear that noise, that hit marker noise? It doesn't play it on the fire. If it played that noise on the fire, you would feel so much more of a psychological connection to what you're doing, but you don't. And that's why shooting enemies feels satisfying, and shooting fire feels like shit. But the wet ones is really cool, because not only can you shoot people who usually require a different gun, but if you fill those... Do you see the green, the yellow, the orange, and the red around the reticle? That's telling me that the secondary fire is all built up. And if I hold my aim key, I can go into a focused ADS that will fire a very accurate, very dangerous mode, but it drains those bars. And then once I run out of the bars, the gun starts firing really slow, and then it becomes nowhere near as effective. But like, look at that. Did you see that, guys? Did it look like I wasn't doing that right? Like, it feels like to me sometimes it's just kind of a bit... And the fucking constantly interrupting you like this is mad annoying. They need an option to turn off that pop-up. It is the worst. Like, I nearly didn't hit it then. That's the kind of thing that I just don't think a player should ever feel like that, you know? I grew up on platformers. I've 100%ed shit like Banjo-Kazooie and Mario 64, you know? And I can't jump across a simple subway track. It's weird. It just makes you feel like you're not doing it right, when I don't think I'm doing it all that wrong, you know? But coming back to this gun, if you hold the fire and then swap between aiming and unaiming, you will constantly be rebuilding up the ability to aim in, and you can use this gun to take on almost any enemy in the game, so it becomes a kind of like a one tool for every situation. It is a multifaceted weapon, and I really enjoy it. And the guy that's over there doing the little dance, that's the Guy Fieri dude. He's the guy who you can whip him into a permastun, and it's very effective. But moving through the air ventilation here, one of the cool gambits of this weapon is not only the risk and reward between single fire and secondary fire, but if you wet the floor as you move, you actually move faster. It's kind of a pseudo super sprint. So if you want to get the best possible movement in a situation, you always want to swap back to using the wet one and using it to move around. And it really does lube you up. It's kind of insane just how much momentum you get on strafing and circling. So it's well worth doing. But let's talk about Guy Fieri. So he charges a big fire attack, and it's either high or low. And when it's high, you can crouch it, and when it's low, you can jump over it. And if you can put anything between you and the flaming projectile, you can take it down. I think he's a really, really clever enemy, and I think he suits the game really well. But keep on pushing through the train, delivering good old-fashioned justice, and be careful not to get sniped here, because the enemies can fire through each other, and you can't fire through them. Which is a bit bullshit, if you ask me. Because when you shoot an enemy who cannot be injured with the gun you shoot them with, not only does it put a cross up, but it also brings that lady up to tell you to use the belt or use a different fucking tool, and that pop-up is so frustrating when you're trying to do like a standard belt, and she keeps going, "Why don't you try a charged belt?" I'm like, why don't you fucking hang yourself with a belt, you noisy bitch? I'm trying to play. Like, is there anything more frustrating? Well, there is. There's a million things more frustrating. We're talking about modern video games here. I was playing Spider-Man earlier on, and every time I tried to do a fight scene, it was slowing me down during a tutorial and dictating that I press a certain button, and because I was playing on over 200 FPS, it didn't work. So I had to cap my frames to get past a fucking tutorial at the start every time you retried a checkpoint. So yes, there are a million things that are more fucking frustrating, but you get the idea, don't you? You get the intent behind it. Nobody wants to be constantly bombarded, being told to do something they already know. And this is where video games get really patronizing and really condescending and really frustrating, because no one needs that. The people who need that are not going to play your game long enough to learn from that. You know, it's just one of those things. If you have to constantly berate a player to do something, you've already failed. And there's plenty of really, really good games that have failed to do their central core tenant, and they've gone really, really heavy-handed, and they've thought they've helped it, but all it does is piss everybody else off. Like, look at Doom Eternal. Does anybody really want to see all those fucking tutorials every time you fight a monster? I don't even think the game needed that, but the devs were so terrified that the jobbers weren't going to be able to beat, like, you know, fucking Return to Earth or whatever it is, Hell on Earth. Like, they were so afraid that they weren't going to get to the point where the game gets fun that they give you a million fucking tips before you've even fired a gun. And it's... To me, I think it's bad design, I do. I think it's pandering. And you should ask for it. And I always go back to God Hand for this. Because at the start of God Hand, there's a sign that says, like, yo dog, you can punch. And it's a terrible tutorial. But at the start of God Hand, there's two men. And those two men will teach you how to fight more than any tutorial will. Because they're going to beat the shit out of you. Immediately. You start the game and two angry men beat the shit out of you. And if you can learn to survive those two men, you will start to understand God Hand on a level that will enable you to get through some of that game. And then every so often, you'll start getting more tools and more tools and more tools. And then if you look around that level, there's a bunch of tool-assisted moments that will tell you, or tooltips I should say, that say, here's this, here's that, do this, do that. But you don't have to touch those signs, you can just get in there and get stuck in and discover it yourself. And God Hand is a harder game than Doom Eternal, by a large margin. And if you're sitting here being like, what? I beat Doom Eternal on Ultra Nightmare using only my bell end with my girlfriend constantly feeding me hot peppers. Well, guess what? God Hand is still harder. And that leads us to the discussion of, we now are in a generation of people that think Dark Souls is the hardest game ever made because they've never played a difficult game. And I don't know if you would agree, ladies and gentlemen, but I think these people are setting up the next generation for a rather large fall. Fortunately, games are so fucking easy now, they probably aren't. Because games are going to play themselves, you're going to sit there, watch them like a movie, and then at the end of the credits, you're going to get a blowjob from the devs. Because that's pretty much what games are now, isn't it? Congratulations, you did it, you're so great, here's an achievement. Here's a save file that unlocks all the achievements. Here's all the effort you needed to previously exert in a video game removed. Don't you feel good? Don't you feel happy? Did we make you smile? Like, who gives a shit, right? It's so strange. It's so strange to me. Like, there was a video on YouTube that I watched the other day called How Dark Souls Perfected Difficulty. Can you imagine a sentence like that coming out of a human's mouth? How? 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 How could you believe that difficulty has been perfected in a medium that is eternal? That's like saying the English language has been perfected. That's like saying science has been perfected. How can you say it's been perfected? Right now, here's a bit of contrast for you guys. Here's a bit of perspective, right? You know, back in the olden days when people used to carve tablets and stand in front of obelisks and talk about sun gods? You know, back in those days, that was the height of technology. That right there, that was your KFC. That was your Netflix and chill. That was your TikTok. The difference being is it was significantly more fucking interesting. And you died quicker, right? Permadeath, IRL, not very fun, especially if you're a slave. That was the height of technology. That was the biggest and brightest minds coming together to culminate everything that we understood in that moment as being facts. That was the agreed upon theory of existence. And now you look to where we are right now. Right now, we think a little bit differently, don't we? We still haven't found Madeleine McCann, and we now have Game Pass, which is not an improvement in my opinion. It's just DRM that people pay for with a smile. And right now, we live at the most sophisticated moment in human history. We have the heights of technology, education, the heights of everything. Video games are supposed to be better, even though most people think they're worse, but we won't get into that. Right now, we are at the height of our intellect, our ambition, and we're constantly striving for that future tomorrow, that better tomorrow. So, the time it took for us to go from, you know, ancient Egypt to where we are right now, apply that multiplication onto the future. That civilization is going to look back on us as knuckle-dragging morons drooling down ourselves like those levitating pizza people from WALL-E. And they're going to laugh at how stupid we were and how we thought we were advanced and we thought we'd got it figured out and how little we knew. We are literally going to be the equivalent to creationists to our future selves and our future generations, because that's what happens. That's how a species develops. We increase our understanding, our technology increases, our science increases, everything increases. We iterate, new minds come along, free thinking, frontiers, trailblazing. That's what it is. We are flagships of new ideas being generated by new thinking and new ways of seeing the world. So, to say such a statement is nonsense. However, on YouTube, bullshit, nonsense, and lies is how you get big. That's literally what YouTube is. It's called lying and clickbaiting and getting people to click and then providing none of the things you promised. Because that's all the website really does. It rewards garbage, mediocrity, and generalized nonsense of people exploiting everything they physically can so that they can make a ludicrous amount of money. And then you have these fucking uneducated moron millionaires who are talking about world events when they haven't even fucking lived. Which I'm not going to get into that either because that's a pointless topic and it's the serpent that devours itself and people just say, oh, you're just jealous. Which, I don't know, man. If the cost of being insufferable like those people is being rich, I think I can stomach with not being rich. This is a difficult fight, by the way. The way that I did that by going into that corner and controlling that situation is very deliberate. I actually died on this encounter, so be very careful. But the idea that anything can perfect difficulty when difficulty is a living, breathing, developing concept, to me, is insane. It is so insane. It's insulting, too. It's an insultingly arrogant thing to say. And the best part is, it was said by somebody who has just discovered Dark Souls and beat it once. But here we go, Mission 7, Subway Sway. Another subway level, this one's cool too. Lots of fire, lots of opportunity to use wet ones, lots of Guy Fieri sharing his rings that have been dipped in every piece of food he's ever cooked. All kinds of cool shit going on. I don't really know what's happening with the gold toilets, but you get a trophy for flushing all of them. And I don't really know if that leads to anything great or anything cool. And if you know, guys, please let me know, that'd be cool. I like the quotes as well. So when you change these people from their fashion abominations into something rather stylish, they say something really silly. One of my favourites is the streaker guy, the flasher. So later on there's a dude in an overcoat that flashes you. And that dude turns into a rather debonair, like, gentleman, butler guy. He reminds me of the boss in the Thief first section of Octopath Traveler. If you play as, is it Therion, I think he's called? That butler thief that's the... I forget the name, is he the retainer of that royal family? It reminds me of that guy. Which is a good reference to have, because what a cool game, Octopath Traveler. I really don't think we're going to get another game like Octopath Traveler because the team that went on to design those other games have made completely different RPGs, which I think is really awesome, but I don't like them as much, you know? But you know the problem when you make a declaration of something being perfected when you yourself are still a neophyte? Is it comes off as incredibly awkward. Oh, speaking of, here's the flasher. So there's two variations of flasher. There's the flasher that doesn't glow, and then you have to shoot him with the colour shotgun. The 2-die 4 elite, as it's called. The die gun, I should call it. There he is. And then the other one is one who does glow, and you have to use the Ghostbuster laser secondary feature of the die gun. And the easiest way to take this guy on is to charge the belt fully and whip him, because it freezes him, and then you can just shoot him point blank range and kill him usually. And I didn't want to rely too much on the belt because I don't really like it that much. I thought the belt was going to have lots of utility and all kinds of features that you could use to your advantage. Because one of the cool things about the control scheme is you can charge the belt the whole time you're playing and shoot your gun at the same time like Bioshock 2. So if you want to, you can always be charging the belt and always have it on your screen. But my problem is not only does it occlude some of the screen, but it also makes this awful fucking noise the whole time. So it sounds like you've got that dude from Police Academy in your ear making some kind of stupid noise repeatedly. And nobody wants that. It's like a walk cycle with the same sound effect for each step, and it just sounds like a woodpecker infecting your brain. But this area is really good, moving through these changing rooms that are filled with all the lights and this really, really nice architecture and all this very opulent environment that's going on. That's one of the things I like about this game. It's full of glamour, for lack of a better word. It's got these really luxurious places, and there's lots of whites and creams and gilding and gold leaf. It's got some really, really nice, like, ceiling pieces. There's some cool shit in this game. It's a really fun game. And as much as the commentary is just going to be full of angry rants about stupid YouTube videos, I do recommend this game highly, guys. It is really fun. And I'm curious to see where it goes as well, what they'll change, what they'll amend, and what they'll add, because I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on it. Because I do have to say this as well. I really did expect they would have changed the way the difficulty works. So before I played the hardest difficulty, I beat the game on normal. And usually, back in the day, I would beat the game on the hardest difficulty, and then I would play on the hardest difficulty, and I already had the strategies, I already had felt how harsh the sting was and got used to the general flow of the game. And when I was a YouTuber, that worked really well because it was 2 birds, 1 stone, and it made you sharp really quickly. It was kind of hard, but it made you sharp. Whereas when you stream, playing games on the hardest difficulty sometimes can be fun, but it demands a lot more of you. And I would rather pay attention to the kind people in my stream than pay attention to the game at that kind of level. You know, I'm not somebody that people watch for my professional gameplay or my, like, MLG fucking focus. People watch me so I make dick jokes while I shoot the bad guys in the games, you know, and we talk about a whole host of nonsense. That's the whole point. So, I don't have any qualms these days about playing my first playthrough on normal. And it's easier because, A, I'm not rushing to try and get the guide up on YouTube so that it stands a chance in the algorithm that fucking hates me and has hated me for a decade now. Like, I don't have to worry about that because I'm not playing that game anymore. So I can just kind of take my time and play it on a much more enjoyable difficulty to see what you could say what the developer intended. I'm not going to say that that's what that is, but you get to see what most people are going to see, and then you also get the contrast between what that level of difficulty was and then what the hardest difficulty is. Because I think this game is quite challenging on normal. I think it's a nice level of difficulty for people to have a good time without being too frustrated. And then I felt when you went onto the hardest difficulty, the game didn't feel that much more difficult at all. And then you'll hit a moment where you die instantly. And every so often you get to these points where the difficulty spikes up really high. And what I thought they were going to do, which I'm assuming a lot of people probably did, is it's kind of tricky to get in that vent as well, which is annoying. But I thought the hardest difficulty would introduce all the enemies sooner. I thought they would give you the guns sooner, so you'd get almost your full arsenal in like Mission 1, Mission 2, but they would also have every single enemy type coming together in a much more difficult ensemble. And to me, that is much better difficulty than arbitrarily cranking HP sliders and damage sliders. Those difficulties can be fine as long as they're tested by a human that knows what they're doing and it gets the love and attention that it needs. That can be fine. It's never going to win any awards for creativity, but it's not trying to either. However, if you create a difficulty where the very encounters you face change dynamically depending on that difficulty you pick, you've created multiple games. And this is why I don't know why devs don't do this more often. And I would love to know why the dev team either didn't think about this or didn't want to do this. Because the hardest difficulty to me should have had every enemy in every level. It could have had interesting ensembles, it could have had interesting combinations. You didn't used to reuse like you don't have to use 1,000,000 of every enemy on every encounter. I'm not asking for that, that's the opposite of what I want. But the grace and the attention to detail that they've done already, do that again on a slightly more increased intensity and demand on the player spectrum, you know? We've already beat your game, we already know the weaknesses, we know the weapons, we know how to move, we're warmed up. Now test us. Now give us something that says, you need to prove to me that you understand what we've made and the lessons we've taught you. And back in the old days, games did this naturally. Games did this by virtue of existing because they were so fucking hard you would never beat them. But now, games have got to the point where when you pay money for any product, you are entitled to the credits. So the gameplay has suffered to such an extent that beating video games nowadays generally involves holding forward and being awake. Like, that's all the criteria you need to win, because everything is playing itself, everything is just completely baby mode, and it's practically insulting to anybody that played a SNES game. And the SNES games weren't even the hardest games, dude. You could beat SNES games. Like, you go back a couple more generations, you ain't beating shit unless you were a god. And conversely here, guys, I'm not saying that those were better days where every game was so hard you never got a chance to have any fun. I'm not saying that. I lived it, you know. Many people did. I'm just saying that there needs to be a better meeting point between these two ideals. Of course, originally games were designed to steal money, and they did it well. Now, games are designed to steal money, and they do it badly. So we need to come to a point where video games aren't just delivery systems for fucking garbage microtransactions and battle passes and a million cryptocurrency, NFT, Troy Baker's fucking face on every sticker, on every fucking cock ring, on every part of the gangbang. We need to come to some kind of agreement that games can be challenging while still being accessible, if they're designed well. And there's the kicker, isn't it? Good design takes effort, money, and care. It takes love and passion, whereas a delivery system for microtransactions needs just a couple of accountants, a couple of like psychologists telling you what is addictive to the human brain, the fucking serotonin receptors and whatnot, and then before you know it, you've got fucking China. You know, you've got China selling some free-to-play literal injection of fucking opium, and then that's perfectly fine, right? And I'm not just saying that China's the only country doing this, of course. Everybody's fucking doing this, except for Belgium, is it? Belgium are awesome. That part of Europe that's just like, hang on a second, this seems fucking stupid, we're not doing this. Which to me is the ultimate ball of play. You might have noticed a transition there, guys, on that jumping section on the subway. This is the first section of the game where the platforming overstays its welcome, and it's really easy to fail, and you keep on hitting the tracks and resetting, and the whole thing is just mad annoying. I do not like the platforming on this level, so I just removed it. And that way, hopefully the video won't be too long, because the original recording for this was over 3 hours, and I don't know if people want to watch 3 hours of Fashion Police Squad. But the cool thing is, you can always stop the video, can't you, and come back. YouTube's pretty good at like bookmarking where you are, and then you can pick it up for later. And I don't expect anybody to sit and watch these in one sitting. Who the hell has the time for that anymore? But if you do that, and you get to the end, and you see those Patron crawls, then there's a huge thank you to you people. It's really nice to try and give back to those people supporting me. And just a huge thank you to everybody that does that. I've got a very small, dedicated group of people who want to see more videos, who want to support the channel. And channels like this, they thrive because of people like that. And if you want to be one of those people, the link is at the end of the video. And again, just a huge thank you to anybody who takes the time. Because these videos don't make themselves, they take a lot of time to make. And hopefully, the people that support them think that they're worthy of both their time and their investment. So this is interesting. You can barely touch this guy with a tickle laser because he's so far away. I do like that the game uses projectile as well. We're currently in it's like the heyday now of projectile returning. Because projectile was one of those things where it was kind of up and down a little bit, and hitscan was king for the longest time. And now projectile seems to have absolutely overtaken it. It started slow, it started ruining COD, and I got really sad. And now everything seems to be projectile. And if you're not entirely certain what the difference is, it's just the travel time between the bullet leaving the gun and reaching the target. And when you play a single player game, you always want projectile, because it means you can dodge the bullets and you don't get immediately melted by robots. But when it comes to multiplayer, I have to say I prefer hitscan every time. And it's objectively less skillful because you don't have to worry about travel time and various other elements like distance. But to me, when I point my gun at somebody and I'm fighting against a human, I want the human to die. I don't want ambiguity, I don't want it to be like some fucking dice roll of several different factors. I want the guy who gets on target first to win. And I think we can all agree, because of the systems that are in play now in multiplayer, all these aggressive systems that drive engagement with microtransactions, it's never about who gets on target first anymore. And because of the way the servers worked back in the day with host advantage and whatnot, and connection and ping, it was almost never about who got on target first unless you were the host. And then now we have the Uwu Senpai Swagman, which is a really cool boss. This boss is going to do a sequence of attacks that all have a rather particular dodge to them, and you're going to have to use a specific weapon depending on what he does to shut down what he's doing. And the general cadence of this fight is you use the wet one's primary fire, and then when you fill up the ability, you can use the secondary fire. And these planes here, these drones, he's going to dash around summoning the drones, and they're going to chase you, and if you shoot them with the secondary fire of the wet ones, they will die. But if they don't die, they will become mines on the ground, and again, you can shoot them with the secondary fire of the wet ones. And then once you stun him, he's going to change into a bunch of different forms, and each of these forms takes damage from a different source. And after you do this a little while, you'll learn what the sources are, and hopefully you'll be able to stay on him as much as you can, because you know how I mentioned, guys, that the bosses outstay their welcome? Well, this is where you're going to see it. So I think conceptually this is cool. You've got this Terminator ripoff using a Buster Sword, dashing around using like Naruto running, and then when he stops, he summons a bunch of helpers to try and make things a bit more awkward, and you just pepper him with your gun until it stuns, and then you punish him as he turns into a bunch of like glitchy different forms. But look at his HP bar. Like, his HP bar is not going down. And I am not missing either. You know, I'm on target for a lot of this. I'm using the right weapons here. And again, guys, if you want to know what weapon to use for what sequence, just watch what I'm doing and steal it. And then he transitions us into a platforming Tron sequence that's inspired by both Tron and Metal Gear Solid. So it even does the novelty Metal Gear Solid dialogue box, which is really cool. And I suppose maybe this could be a little bit Saints Row inspired, or maybe like Star Fox inspired with Andros, or I don't even know what this is. A bunch of different elements. But this is where the platforming shows you what you can do when you use it the way the devs want you to use it. And in a sequence like this, it's not too bad, because it's self-contained. But some of the other platforming sequences I just don't think are that good. And then you have to whip this with your belt, and then that's a checkpoint, I believe. So now you've got the first checkpoint. You have to do this 2 more times. And the area where this gets kind of awkward is the final one. The final one involves a hammer. And because I've only done it once, I don't really know how the hammer works. And if you do it wrong, you have to do the whole 3rd sequence of the fight again just to get to this weird hammer section, which gets quite confusing. And the idea is simple. The hammer's going to bang the platform, and then you just shoot its weaknesses on the hammer, and if you shoot all the weaknesses, you win. But there's times when the hammer doesn't touch me at all, and there's times when it touches me no matter what I try and do. And it's one of those things that I really don't like in a boss fight, where it pretends like it's going to come down and hit one platform, so you jump to the other platform, and it swaps fucking platforms and hits you on the other one. And I don't know. There's probably something going on under the hood there that you can study a little bit longer than I did, where you can figure out what's actually happening and dodge it properly. But truth be told, this boss fight's too long, and I feel like you get bored halfway through it, that you just want it to end. And I think that the components are great. They just need to take the life down. You know, I don't mind this guy doing more damage if he dies in one third of the time it takes you to kill him. Because I do believe difficulty is not how long you can achieve something. You know, difficulty can be swift as long as it feels like what you did took a lot of effort. Like, look at something like the Mile High Club. The Mile High Club is a really, really difficult mission, because you have to go through really quickly against these enemies that kill you immediately. And there's lots of them, it's really claustrophobic, and unless you intelligently use your stun grenades and your flash grenades, it's an absolute nightmare, because they're all better than you, they're all faster than you, and there's more of them. But when you do that, that level's like 2 minutes long. And it's harder than anything in that game, because it's just 2 minutes of absolute intensity, demanding intensity. Whereas this is like 8 minutes of just, okay, I get what this is, and now I'm bored. And again, I think as in the grand scheme of first-person shooters, I think the bosses here are interesting. I think they've definitely got something cool. Dodge their moves with actual dodgers, feeling skillful, and then punish them with actual punish windows, using your weapons and your tools. But there's just no reason for it to be so long. So now we're into the second gimmick, and then the second gimmick is the easiest of all the gimmicks. It's just a Wolfenstein emulation. And you come through here and destroy some servers while shooting some faces. And this bit's really, really good, because it's... all of this is skill. If you die here, it's because you didn't do it right. Whereas most people aren't going to have any problems here, because as awesome as Wolfenstein is and as integral to the development of shooters, this is not even half as demanding as what Wolfenstein was. And this one, I think, kind of stands out as being a gimmick rather than an actual demanding moment. Whereas the other two gimmicks, you can fall in that platforming segment, and the hammer segment, you can get hit when you think you're dodging it correctly and you actually just move into its path and take damage from being an idiot, you know? Whereas this is... it's just kind of very basic. It's an Easter egg, isn't it? It's an homage. And I don't think it's too bad at all, actually. I quite like it. But I wouldn't play a whole game like this because it's just not engaging enough for me now. It was the same, I was playing Klonoa the other day. Klonoa is a really, really cool game. I've wanted to play it for a long time. And after I played about 3 levels, I was done. You know? And it's not because it's a bad game, it's just because platformers don't hold my attention. I wish they did, because they're so cute and they look great, but I'm just not interested. But here we go, final phase. So again, now we get an opportunity to damage him. And I really wish you could damage him more than you can, but it just doesn't seem like you get that much opportunity to do it. And then we do the same thing. It's just escalated now, so he throws a bit more projectiles, I think, and that's about it. But they could have added maybe 2 or 3 more moves here and half the HP, and this would have been something I would have been gushing over. And you might be thinking, well, maybe it's just the hardest difficulty that makes it so lengthy. It's not. It's still lengthy on normal, because I can remember when I was streaming it being like, this is really funny, and I like what they're doing here, but it's too long. And to me, brevity is the king. Brevity is the ultimate thing when it comes to game design. You need your player base to want more. You cannot get to the point where they want less. If you even tiptoe towards that moment where a player kind of goes, ah, this is getting... It's a bit long, this, you know. When anyone starts to notice the length, the magic trick is over. The mirrors didn't work. Now you need to go back and change the smoke. And then here's the final part. This is how you win. So you're on 2 platforms and the hammer starts coming down. After the hammer comes down, there's going to be... Do you see those bangles on the hammer that are glowing red? Those bangles are going to be vulnerable to be shot. Once you shoot all of them, you win. And I think where I stood just then might be how you dodge everything the hammer does. But every so often I like move a little bit and it still hits me. It's just like, okay, that didn't work. But as long as you can focus on hitting the weak points, that's all that really matters. Because once all the weak points go down, you've won. And it looks really easy, but I did die there twice. Just because I was trying to dodge the hammer, and the harder I tried to dodge it, the more I got hit. So instead, I would just say tank it, and then shoot the boss. If you're trying to do no damage there, you're going to have to learn that fight. And every time you fail, you do that final sequence again, where you have to shoot him and stun him, and it just takes too long. And then I mentioned that this had a lot of references and cultural moments. Yeah, some of them are quite dated. But that was Mission 8, Son of a Glitch. It's a cool mission, and it's got great music. And hopefully, in time, it will be crimped and sliced and omitted and turned into something a bit leaner. But this is where the game gets hard, guys. So we're now moving into the beach levels. And it's going to introduce some barrels that can help you do some immediate fashion changes, which is really nice. But it's also going to introduce you to a couple of really fucking shitty checkpoints. And again, the patch notes before I made this walkthrough, they specifically mentioned adding checkpoints to make the game more smooth and more enjoyable. And I do believe they'll do it again. Because there's a couple of moments where I just think that the game is way more demanding than the checkpoints afford. And I don't think it's the end of the world, because you can totally do it, but I am a player. You know if you've been here before. If this is your first time here, welcome. I do complain a lot. But I like it so that I can segment games. You know, my favourite kind of save system is a quick load, quick save system. Because it enables me to turn the game into something I want to do. And if I want to do Iron Man and do it all on one credit, I can do that. If I want to segment every single fight and really deconstruct it and just obsess over every detail, I can do that as well. And to me, doing it that way is the smartest way, because it gives everybody an opportunity to have fun with your product. However, consoles came along and checkpoints came along and things did change, and the checkpoint mode now is the more popular way of doing it. And the issue here is, they created a new way of doing things that demanded a higher level of understanding. And this is one of the new enemies here. This is quite a unique enemy, and I wish there was more like him. He's an enemy that has 2 fashion crimes. So, first you have to throw on... You don't have to do this first, but you can do it in any order. But you have to throw a gnome on him to get rid of one aspect of his outfit. And then you need to hit him with the sticky grenade on the Tailor boy, and then shoot him once he's been covered up with the secondary effect. And he's the only enemy, really, in the game where you have to do 2 separate things to engage him. And I think that that's a really cool idea, and I would have loved to have seen maybe 3. Can you imagine enemies that took 3 things to do to them, stacking combos on enemies? But he is the most demanding and one of the most dangerous. So be very careful, because he does a big butt slap, or a butt slam, or a belly flop, or whatever you want to call it. And then he does an interesting towel attack where he whips you a bunch of times with a towel. And he's got a lot of movement, he's quite aggressive, and he's got quite a lot of life too. But you might be thinking, you know, what did I mean when I said we needed more expertise now for an inferior system? And it comes from quick saving. Quick saving, all you need is to make sure that the player can press a button and the state of the world saves. If you can program that, everything else is done for you. You don't have to think about what about X, what about Y, because it doesn't matter. How many people, show of hands in the comments right now guys, how many people have played a PC game or a game with quick saves where you have quick saved yourself into a death loop? Because I know you've all done it. I've done it so many times. And it just happens, doesn't it? You're like, oh, I'll quickly save, I'll get myself out of the shitter, and then boom, you're in a bad place. You're in a place that might not even be salvageable. It might be an impossible situation. It might just be a soft lock. It happens. That's the downside of quick save. Sometimes you quick save at the wrong time, you break the game. It is a repercussion of the system. And how do you avoid it? You don't save like a bitch as much. That's how you avoid it. Or you get lucky. That's the only real downside of quick saving. Everything else is up to you. Do you want to have to kill 3 enemies? Do you want to have to kill 2 enemies? Do you want to have to kill 1 enemy? You can design your endurance on what you enjoy. And this is... like, quick saving is in... was it in Doom? I don't know if it was in Doom. It's in Quake, though. Like, quick saving has been in games since the mid-90s. And probably before. This is a system that, I dare say it, for just the irony, it is a mastered system. And I know, the hypocrisy, right? It is as close to a perfect system as I can think currently with what we understand about video games. Because everybody benefits. I would imagine the one area where it's not perfect is it might be hard to do. It might be difficult to let a player save anywhere. I don't know the behind the scenes under the hood. I don't know the pipeline. But it feels like to me it's a considerably better way of doing it. And if there's a better way of doing it, shouldn't we want that? Shouldn't we advocate that? Shouldn't that be what we champion? Instead of an objectively inferior method that leads to intermittent results? Because the problem when it comes to checkpoints is that there's someone who has to design that. And I believe, but I don't know, and if I'm wrong, please tell me. I believe a lot of the times in these companies, the person or people involved in doing the checkpoints are not the same people who play the game. And I think we can all agree in certain moments when we come across one of those checkpoints, it feels like the person who put it there doesn't understand why it shouldn't be there. Because how many times have you got a checkpoint before you've gone on an elevator? And then you've got to the top of an elevator and then there was a cutscene, and then afterwards you'd walk forward and then there would be a boss fight. And then the checkpoints before you went up the elevator. You know, how many times is the checkpoint before the cutscene, before the load screen, before the boss? Instead of after the cutscene, after the load screen, right at the start of the boss. There are so many quality of life failures in video games that could have been circumvented by people putting checkpoints in better places. And everybody has a horror story, right? Everybody has a malady where they can describe in rich detail a moment in a game where they got fucked by a checkpoint that wouldn't have even remotely been a problem if the checkpoint had been better. Like, I can name one in every guide I've probably made that had checkpoints, because you're always going to come up against one that's a little bit less realistic, a little bit more demanding, a little bit more cheesy, a little bit more douchey, you know? And a great one for my channel that stands out would be something like Evil Within. Evil Within has a chapter by the number of 6, and it has a sequence in it that has one of the more demanding parts of that game. One of the reasons why that guide is so popular is because of that room and because of that checkpoint. If that room in chapter 6 had had a checkpoint, do you think anybody would remember it? I don't think anybody would. And there's an interesting conversation here, I think, because on the one hand, that sequence is legendary and people get to share a story of overcoming adversity and everyone understands what you did because they did it too and it was hard. Everybody gets this victory this badge of honor, saying they did that horrible moment, right? Even though you can manipulate it now, and there's all these really good strategies, and like that Jigsaw guy is so fucking good at that game that he's come up with a million ways to do everything. But fundamentally, people get to be part of a very luxurious club of people that suffered a horrible checkpoint and overcame it. Do you think that that takes away the achievement of doing that level if there's a checkpoint there? Say right now, guys, if Bethesda patched in a checkpoint on Chapter 6, does that diminish the value of what you did? Because they didn't have to suffer that checkpoint that you suffered? Because to me, I wouldn't be salty about that. I wouldn't mind. I'd be happy that they didn't have to do it. Because I don't think that room is a good example of difficulty. Because the reasons it's difficult are not the game, really. It's the circumstance. It's what they make you do. It's the fact that the game doesn't quite do it as well as it could, that you're fighting against the systems as much as the scenario. You know? Imagine if several aspects of the evil within were different, that sequence wouldn't even matter. But it's because they're not that it does. You know, if Sebastian did any cardio before the day of the event, you'd be fine. There's so many aspects that would make that better. You know, if you didn't have to protect someone. There's so many elements where it's just, this is insane. If you didn't have to wait for an arbitrary timer. There's so many things. But that's not the case, and thus, it's a legendary sequence now. But I should probably talk about this, because you're going to see it a few times, and it's kind of interesting. So, this reminds me of Mission Impossible, Mission Impossible on the N64, and it also reminds me of Silent Scope, where we're doing a dedicated sniping sequence, and you have to change your ammunition depending on the crime. And there's one for a badly fitting suit, and there's one for a bad haircut. And the bad haircut is easy to spot, because it's either a woman with it down over her face, or it's people coming in like latex ballooned gimp masks. So shoot those people, and then the bad fitting suit, at some points it will be like trousers that look terrible, but in this moment here it looks like it's just the jacket that's way too bulky on the shoulders. And you do this a while, and then after a decent amount of time you get attacked by these people up here. I don't know if there's a penalty for shooting the wrong bullet other than just perfection, but the only limitation here is bad detection in the game and the reload. And when I say bad detection, all I mean is there's times when you shoot at them perfectly and it tells you that you didn't hit them, or you hit them with the wrong bullet. The amount of times I've fired at somebody wearing fucking shoes, like sandals, and I've hit him in the legs, and it's told me it was wrong. Like that just then. Did you see that? Did it hit the wrong guy? It makes you wonder, doesn't it? There's a couple of moments where I just, like, did you see what just happened? Is it delayed? I don't get it. But there she is as a woman to my right there, getting through. We've seen her. We got her. But I think that maybe the hitboxes are a bit weird here. Because this is not even remotely as demanding as it could be. This could be really, really bad, but it's not. And I'm glad it's not really bad, because, again, you know when I talk about sequences that are difficult that don't need to be difficult? This is one of them. I'm super happy that this is kind of a distraction and it's more fun than anything. If this was legitimately hard, you would resent it. And the amount of like gunner sequences in COD games where you die immediately on veteran because it's super shitty design is not fun, and it's memorable for bad reasons. You know, I always talk about the on-rail shooting sequences in Brutal on the Uncharted collection. Does anybody like those moments where you die before the screen's faded in? Nobody likes that. And the devs are in denial over it too. And it just makes me wonder who that's for. Like, how can anybody think that that's a redeeming feature? It reminds me of Binary Domain as well. For anybody that played Binary Domain on the hard difficulties, there's a sequence where you were hanging, like, by Big Bo's arm, and you were holding his arm, and there's a bunch of robots trying to climb him, and you have to shoot them with a pistol. And that sequence is so hard, it's not even funny. Like, you shoot them all perfectly as fast as you can, and you still fail. Like, I remember being on that segment and just thinking, this is insane. I must be doing something wrong. And it took a while to do it, and I hated it. And I don't really remember anything about Binary Domain, other than everybody told me it was the best game in the world, and when I played it, it wasn't. But I'll always remember that sequence when you're holding that dude's arm, because I just felt like it was... This is a game that is putting such a demand on a player in a moment that's nothing like the gameplay, and it's ludicrously difficult for a reason I couldn't even tell you. And I tried to get that game on PC to go back to it to see if I could play it and enjoy it a bit more with mouse and keyboard. And that's one of those games that the port for that thing, like that's like trying to drive a car in a foreign country using like a robot you built to drive it. Like, it's just madness. And right here, guys, I'm going to get rid of this whole room using the Fab Glove, because this is a super claustrophobic room and there's tons of enemies. This is a really difficult room. But again, this glove, way too strong. But awesome too. There's some really, really cool features in this game. And I'm surprised too that the game didn't have any kind of glory kill system, because I'm really, really happy when we see Doom Eternal clones. I want nothing but Doom Eternal clones right now. Problem is, Doom Eternal got it so right, you just know people are going to get it so wrong. And that's the issue, isn't it? Doom Eternal is such a good game. That is one of those games that changed things. And I'm always talking about games changing things because those are the ones I love the most. There aren't many games nowadays that are changing the industry. There aren't many games that come out that are changing mechanics, that are making you go, hang on a second, this is different, this is new, this is something else. And as much as you could argue it's just an extension of what 2016 did, which it is, it's put it into its own place, and it's such a different like feedback loop. And I could say that because I didn't like Doom 2016, as controversial as that opinion is. So Doom Eternal to me is such a unique game, and I love almost everything about it. And I can't wait for something to do what that game has done, because I think it's probably the most important game of maybe the last 5 years. And it's for so many more reasons than just how good it is too, which I think is an even greater testament to its quality. That is a AAA title that is proving that you can do your own thing, you can do something demanding, you can do something niche, something fringe, something anti-accessibility, even though it's a super fucking accessible game. Like, you can do something that is channeling that old school spirit of video games, and you can put it in a modern wrapper, and you can sell it to a modern audience, and it can work. And I think that's almost more impressive than the mechanics of Doom Eternal, and Doom Eternal's got great mechanics. As I try and do some platforming here, and I'm having a difficult time with it. So you might be wondering, Chris, how the hell did you not jump then? Well, trust me guys, I pressed jump. I can jump. I've played video games before, but here's the issue. When you're falling in this game on any kind of downward slope, you can't jump. So you have to jump really early. And you know those platformers that you play as you get into more modern games where they let you jump in midair if you fall off a ledge? Like, that was something that was introduced to platformers so that people with bad timing and bad spacing can stand a chance and have fun with those games. And once you get used to being able to jump even when you've mistimed your jump, when you go back to a game that only lets you jump when you have connection to a platformer, it feels at times like it's the worst thing in the world, because you're not used to the punishing timing of making sure you jump right at the right moment, because if you don't, you just fall. And it looks like you didn't even press it when you did. But you're used to a much more forgiving input system, right? And that's kind of how that feels there. And I see the value of both systems. Oh, by the way here, guys, you can use these barrels a lot more effectively than I'm using them. I should have used the barrel to get rid of the two big guys with the towels and the crocs, but I just wanted to get rid of the fire dude because he drops fire everywhere and makes it kind of awkward. And I know that I can comfortably kite this room because it's just a bunch of people throwing briefcases, a couple of salarymen throwing their attache cases or whatever you want to call them. And then it's these guys putting pressure on you. But you see what I mean? Look at the dynamic of this fight. Two big dudes pressuring you while everyone else shells you. This right here is an encounter design. This is clever. This is what I wanted throughout the whole game. You know, I wanted a combination of the enemies being awkward and demanding on the player. And when we get to Beachin 2, because Beachin 1 is quite easy, it's actually quite fun. Beachin 2, that's where this game gets really hard. Because it's got a tough checkpoint, it's got some tough encounters, and it's just buttering your arsehole for cruising for a bruising, which is not too bad. And then when you get to Through the Fire and Noice, that level, dude, is absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. But there goes Mission 9. We get to see the fashion show of it. 17 minutes, a lot longer that one. 85 crimes solved. Like, it would be really cool if there were ambient crimes in the level. Like, stuff you could find where you could solve them if you knew what you were doing. The greatest example of this, if you don't know what I mean, guys, would be like Luigi's Mansion. Do you remember in Luigi's Mansion where you could go into rooms and start fucking with the curtains and fucking with the chandelier and like messing around with the cupboards and stuff, and you could come up with all kinds of treasures and things? Oh my goodness, I love that game. Isn't it crazy that Luigi's Mansion came out when I was in secondary school, right? The GameCube in secondary school, before I'd even left high school. And there's things in that game that games still aren't doing now. Things in that game that I value so much. And you know what's really interesting too? The gaming journalists, when Luigi's Mansion came out, said it was a good game, but they said it was no Mario. It's a good game, but it's no Mario. It was lacking this, it was lacking that, it was repetitive, it was this, it was that. Well, I say fuck you. I say fuck every one of those people, dude. I love that game more than any Mario game. I fucking adore that game. And it's so different. There's no games like that. I wish there was more games like that, but they just don't exist. And that love and attention that they put to that world, where you just go around doing weird things in weird rooms, it's insane that all these years later, I still love the idea of that game so much, and I don't think anything has scratched the itch. I've played the Ghostbusters games, you know, I played like that. Remember that? Was there a PS2, like, fucking Ghost Hunter game? Do you remember that? I played that game anyway. I played Wild 9, but that wasn't really the same. You know, like, I've played everything you can think of, and I've never felt that same feeling, that magic that Nintendo managed to capture with a game that, it didn't get bad reviews, but it didn't get celebrated in a way that I wish it could. And admittedly, I do think it can be a bit, you know, linear and a bit predictable and a little bit repetitive if you don't like the mechanics. And I do think that the hoovering needed a little bit more skill, because some of those portrait ghosts, to do them in one attempt, it does feel kind of lucky at times. And if you've ever done a perfect run getting a maximum pearl from each of the portrait ghosts, you do have to reload a bunch when you drop the hoover, because sometimes it just drops, you know? And I don't know if there's any science behind why that happens. Speaking of science, this is a really cool fight in theory, but I'm doing a terrible job right now because I keep falling off. And again, when I start falling off buildings like this, guys, I get really annoyed. I get so salty about it. Because I like mobility, I like being high flying, and I'm just doing a terrible job right now of doing those things, so it just makes me feel really down on my ability to play the game. And I fell off again. Like, this is brutal. However, I think this is important too, because sometimes when you watch a walkthrough, it can look like the person is like playing on autopilot and they never make mistakes, and that's not true. Like, this tilted me like a motherfucker. Like, I was so close to just restarting the checkpoint and doing it again. But again, I mentioned, I'm trying to get this out quite quickly, and it's not because I want to rush, it's not because I don't like the game and I'm just trying to like push it off and get past. It's because right now I have a schedule, and I'm trying to adhere to the schedule, and the schedule is quite demanding. But I'm looking around the rooftop here and having just a little look around. I love the idea of a rooftop level, but I wish there was a universal way to save yourself. Like, you know when you play Arkham and you fall off and you can press the back claw and you just fly back up? It'd be really nice if the belt could help you on some of the edges or something and just help you recover. And I don't want them to take away all the threat of falling, but at some point the falling is just pointless, isn't it, really? It's just, yep, I fell again, I fell again, I fell again, and you just... that was weird. Does anybody feel good about falling? Maybe that's our punishment, isn't it? Having shit gameplay. But here is the first instance of the Fab Glove malfunctioning. I wonder if this game will get any DLC. Because you could add some enemies to this game. You could add some levels. You could add some challenges. Hell, if you could add some guns, that'd be nice. Because I want to talk about Tokyo Ghostwire. I want to cover Tokyo Ghostwire, guys, but I'm kind of building myself up to it because it's a really disappointing game for me. I think the game is good, but I wanted it to be more than it is. And I think that that is a very fair way of saying it. I like the game. I think the idea is great, but it has 3 weapons. It is a first-person shooter about, like, the spirit world and ghosts and, like, fucking ghost busting. And there's 3 weapons. Do you remember the last time you played a game with 3 weapons? Was it a boxing game? Like, I don't get it, you know? I can't even deal with that. I can't. My brain can't deal with that. And I could understand if 1 weapon turned into 50 weapons, you know, like the Vanquish gun. But it doesn't. It's just 3 weapons. And they're not even that interesting or fun to use. And to me, when you're making a game that's about, like, hunting ghosts or stopping ghosts in this strange, like, event that's happening in Tokyo, you should have all kinds of weird shit, dude. And I might have said this before, because I've talked about this on stream, so I apologise if I'm just repeating myself. I've been doing this for over 10 years, I'm bound to do it, right? Here's a new enemy, by the way. This is the dubstep girl. This is the girl that you can throw the gnome at, and it will interrupt her little sermon here. But you can also focus fire and just take her out like that. But you need a full gun. If you don't have a full gun, you won't have enough, and she'll just get away with murder. You need to focus her, because she's really dangerous. But I think Neon White has mechanics in it that Ghostwire should have had. Like, there are things in the game Neon White which, if you've not played that, or if you've not watched my walkthrough, A, why didn't you watch the walkthrough, you big dirty bastard? I'm going to find where you live and beat you to death. B, you should play that game, it's amazing. And C, did I mention you should play that game? It's fucking amazing. Neon White's probably the best game released this year. Because it's the game that no one is a fan of, and it's not for me, and then as soon as you play it, it's immediately for you, and you're an immediate fan. That's how good it is. Because it's a simple game with simple ideas, and it's done majestically. And it's done in a manner that is constantly evolving, constantly keeping you guessing, and it's constantly making you smile. But the mechanics in that game, if they were in Ghostwire, Ghostwire would be a million times better. Because it has a bunch of shit that would really suit that game. And that's one of the greatest compliments you can give to Neon White. Neon White has mechanics that could easily benefit every other game that should have no real reason being in Neon White, and are there anyway, and are still awesome. Like, I can't say enough good things about that game, I really can't. But you do need to be aware that the story's fucking awful. And I say awful, that's not true. The story's good, but the way it's delivered is awful. The dialogue is horrendous. The voices are gonna send you fucking insane. The whole thing is just... It's just, here's how you ruin a Star Ocean in 10 seconds, pretty much. It's rough. But if you like it, then you're okay, you know, you don't mind. I like Steve Blum, so listening to Steve Blum's pretty good. But everybody else is kind of fucking annoying, I can definitely concede that. But you don't play that game for the story. If you're playing Neon White for the story, you're on a first playthrough. Every playthrough after that, you're going to skip that shit and get immediately to all the cool platforming, the cool soundtrack, and the cool movement. You know? It's just the way that's going to be. But this right here is a difficult checkpoint coming up. It's pretty tough, this one. If it's the one I think it is anyway. Beachin 2 is definitely an elevated encounter. But right then, we interrupted her with the gnomes, but it didn't quite work as I wanted it to. And the dudes on the scooters are giving me a real run for my money here, but I like this because they're making me move. And anything that forces you to move is really cool. But just be careful. And also be careful if you whip those guys. Whipping the scooters is good because it will stun them and make them spin, but they will continue in the projection that they are going, and they'll still hit you. So if you're close enough for that, it's the last thing you want to do sometimes, because they'll still just come and clonk you in the face. And then we have the triple dude over here, the big daddy. This guy throws curving suitcases. This guy's like wanted salary man. And if you fully charge a belt, you'll stun him, but you need to shoot him with the die gun. And I don't think he's a very good enemy, him. I think he's one of those that you should have been able to use a multitude of guns on him, and they would have had different effects, maybe. I think that could have been really cool. But instead it just feels like, charge the belt, shoot him, and that's it. But there she goes. I'm going to drop some gnomes down here to try and get that guy. The gnomes are actually pretty good, but you don't have to use them all that often. You can use them on the final boss as a bit of passive damage, which is really nice as well. But once you realise that the Tailor boy, if you aim at the sled and you've got good aim, once you see the damage that gun does, you'll not use any other gun. Unless there's some strategy I didn't see, and if so, I'll have to revise mine. Because the final boss is just, it's like playing Kovacs, it really is. It's literally just a tracking test, because he's got too much life. So here's a few more of those barrels, and these buildings here, you know this green on the wall with the pink? That very deliberate, like, faded, muted green? It always reminds me of Sunset Overdrive when you get to that one part of the city that's got those kind of colour schemes going on. Those kind of, like, beachy colours. Such a cool aesthetic. I love that colour profile. And then we've got a couple more streakers here, so be really careful because this is all on the same checkpoint, this. You're going to see me here being incredibly tentative because this is the part where it's really easy to die when your HP is as low as mine. If you've got more HP, you'll be absolutely fine, but because I ended up getting here with a pretty shambles amount of life, it meant that I had to play this very strategically. And again, I don't mind that, you know. I've played Rainbow Six Vegas. You ever played that game? You peek out 1 pixel, you immediately get put to a screen where you can't see anything. I'd love to cover those games, dude. Rainbow Six Vegas and Vegas 2, they were really hard. They were hard a long time ago as well, back in like 2008, 2009 or whenever that was. Problem with them is the PC ports are anus, so you just can't really do much with them. And I just can't go back to shooters on console anymore, it's not for me. Unless it's GoldenEye. But even then, you can play GoldenEye online now, can't you, on all kinds of consoles and emulators and things. Hell, you can probably get that version that was meant to come on 360 and then never did, or is apparently coming later on or something. But another part of this game I would have liked to see, and maybe they'll do it in their next title, is that I'd like to see a bit more interactive elements. There's a lot of stuff in these environments that, because it is so simplistically detailed, because it's a stylistic choice of making it look like this, it would be super cool if you could mess with it, detail, touch it, you know? I like opening things, I like knocking things, I like things falling off, I like things having some kind of interactive element. And it's just one of those things where nothing really has that except for I think the vending machines. It'd be so good if you could, you know, fold the umbrellas up, or just like slide a chair in, or something, you know? Or even knock the chairs around. It's the little things that really elevate games, and that's the stuff that I'm looking for. But here's a checkpoint. That is quite difficult, that. It doesn't look it, but it is. And then we've got another one of the sniping sequences, which... This one is a bit more demanding, because there's more opportunities for you to, you know, get sidetracked. But I don't think anybody's going to struggle too much on this. The only thing you will struggle with is probably doing it perfectly if you want the trophy, because then you have to actually do it right. And here we have the shoes. And I want you to take a good look here for the amount of times when I fire at an enemy and I'm using the correct ammunition and it doesn't work. Because it makes me really curious as to if it's bad detection, if I actually did miss, if I actually did use the wrong ammunition, what it is. Because in the heat of the moment, I felt like I was doing most of this spot on. But I remember a couple times it didn't work. And it stems to that, doesn't it? That idea of... When things don't work, I'm always curious as to why. Like that right there. Did I miss that, dude? It's just weird. How did I miss him twice? Answers on a postcard. Maybe it just needs kind of smoothing out a bit. And now we've got people on the balconies. But I don't think I've noticed. And I don't actually know what the people on the balconies do. Am I just going to ignore them? So, you might be wondering, Chris, how did you not hear this horrible horn? Well, when I was recording this, I was listening to deathcore. and I totally missed that. So there you go. And I say deathcore, what was I listening to? I think I was listening to Aversion's Crown. I was also listening to a TV show. I say a TV show, it was a YouTube TV show. While I had music on in the background, so I was getting bombarded by a lot of sound. And I completely missed that sequence there, because I had the game on low volume. Because now that I've got a mixer, I can actually do that, which is really cool. Which is a little bit of an insight into the channel for people that care. Back in the day when I used to record off console, because you're using a capture device, it doesn't matter what you're doing on your PC, because your PC doesn't capture it. So you can watch movies, you can watch TV shows, you can watch DSP, you can do whatever the hell you want to do. And it doesn't come through on the capture device. However, when you record on PC, it puts everything down into a single track, unless you're using some kind of third-party software or a mixer. So, when I tried to record, listening to stuff, you would hear the stuff in it. And it happened a decent amount, and I had to do a bunch of stuff to hide it. So what ended up happening is I went from, when I was recording things, having no focus on the game and just recording it while focusing on other things, because believe it or not, that's how I work the best. When I focus 100% on a game, I get bored. Because it's not enough stimulation because of my fucking ADHD, you know, generation and the 3 monitors with a million things on them. Even though I only have 2 monitors and I don't have a million things on them. So when I became essentially exclusively PC, I had to record with nothing but game sound, and truth be told, it did bum me out. And, you know, I got it done because I do treat it like a job, but I would be frustrated that I wasn't doing more things and I was wasting time, because one of the cool things about multitasking is you are able to tick off a lot of things at once, and you can constantly keep yourself busy and constantly keep yourself engaged. And the downside of that is you become used to it, and then when you sit down and do one thing, you feel like you're not doing it right, which is a bit of a curse, but what can you do? Sins and virtues. So when I finally got a better headset, and because my better headset needed a mixer, it was a good opportunity to pick up a mixer. By the way, guys, this right here is probably the best on-rail shooting section I've played in a game in a very long time. And it's not because of how it's paced, it's not because of the dynamic of what you're actually doing, it's because not only is your gun really accurate, but you can actively hide and avoid damage like Time Crisis. Those elements alone make this a million times better than almost any shooting segment in most video games. This right here is really clever, and I would have loved to have seen more instances of this, and I would have loved them to be designed a bit more interesting than this one, because this one, truth be told, is a little bit basic. But the mechanics, ladies and gentlemen, are beautiful. This could have been so good. I would have liked to fight a boss like this because of how good this works and how fun this was. So when I finally got a mixer, after trying to figure out how to use it because it wasn't the most obvious thing, and I'm not the smartest guy on the planet, it became apparent to me that using the routing function, you can change what you hear in your headphones and what your PC hears in its, you know, its mind's eye, you could say. So when you record with something like OBS, I can isolate what OBS is hearing, and that means that I can now silence music, because obviously it's copyright, it's third party. It's not part of the game, you can get in trouble. And I can also watch TVs and movies and whatever hell I want, and they're not on the video competing with my commentary. And it seems like a small thing, but it makes a huge difference. Because being able to record and do other things, to me, feels so productive that it makes me want to record more. And if you can get into the headspace of wanting to do your job and wanting to do the things that you focus on, like, that can be a really powerful aid in being productive. And when you do anything creative, productivity always suffers, because you can't be creative, you know, 10 hours a day. It doesn't work like that. Nobody can do that. So you have to take it when you can. And if you can push through and get to a feeling where you feel more that way, it just feels better. So being able to do other things, that's my kicker right there. That's the thing that really elevates what I can do. And it's a lot more fun. And it's easy to miss the fun, because especially when you've been doing it a long time, and when a lot of the games nowadays, like, I have a friend called Ruben, who's currently on the YouTube kick, and he's doing his best, because he should. You know, he's got a lot of subs now, he's grown his channel, he's done the work to grow the channel, and now he's getting the views for it. So he's hitting everything. He's got the widest possible brush. He's covering every single thing that appears. And doing that's not the hardest thing in the world, like conceptually, but emotionally, it's really tough. Because there comes a point of both burnout and exhaustion of doing so much, and doing so much that you don't care about, that eventually the rubber hits the road. And I have a lot of respect for people that are able to do that and kind of stick in there, because I can't really cover things anymore I don't like. And I know really quickly whether or not I'm going to like something. So I can answer immediately whether or not I'm going to make a video, or if it's even going to be considered a guide. And I don't make as many walkthroughs as I used to. I used to cover every main release, as long as it was in my wheelhouse. I didn't generally do like Madden and FIFA and shit like that, but I did everything else. Whereas now, I don't even cover 1/3 of the AAA titles, because most of them are shit. And it's fundamentally because I've been doing it so long, you know? When you do something so long, you can't be the same as you used to be. There has to be some underlying motivation. And for somebody who's been successful, your underlying motivation can be either the success it generates, the money, or the exposure, or whatever it is, the views. That can be a motivating tool in and of itself. So you can push through these barricades of like self-doubt and not digging what you're doing and lethargy by an apathy at some points, by simply going, the ends justify the means because I'll make X amount of views, X amount of engagement, and X amount of growth. But the problem becomes, what if you're not that category? What if when you do the things that you do, that take the time and the effort, the passion, the love and whatnot, and you don't get the growth, you don't get the views, you don't get the engagement, when you know you might not get 1,000 views on what you're making, it takes the wind out of your sails. When you first start doing it, you don't know enough to be worried about that stuff, so you just do the whole, I will make it, I will be consistent, and because it's good, people will find it, right? So when you are young and dumb and full of optimism, it doesn't matter if you get 1 view, you've already got 50 things you want to do because it's this new adventure, it's this new voyage. And when you're on anything new, it feels magic and it feels special and it feels great. But think about when you were working your job, when you first started. How interesting was your job when you first started? How cool was it? You know, how detailed and different and nuanced and enjoyable. And then 6 months later, you're like, yeah, this is fucking shit. This is going to be hard work. And the hard work is stomaching it, not doing it. Doing it's easy. Suffering it's hard, you know? And it's the same with something like YouTube or Twitch, depending on what it is. If you're doing it for the sheer joy of it and the pleasure of it, you're probably going to have a great time. If you're doing it to try and find something that sparks your passion or to get a result, how long do you give it to get that result before you say, yeah, that's not working, I need to do something else? And then after that, you know, when you start focusing more and you highlight on something that's better for you, like emotionally and mentally, what happens then if that doesn't get the reception that you want? You know? When everything doesn't go the way you want, how do you change to continue doing what you're doing? Because you have to change, you have to adapt, you have to keep moving. Because if you stay the same, you stagnate and you die, and it doesn't matter how good your content used to be, it's not enough to continue to be good today. And if you want to grow and you want to mature and you want to evolve, you have to keep taking risks and going in different directions and altering what you're doing. And who knows, maybe that will pay off, maybe it won't. There are plenty of channels that bury themselves with bad decisions. We've all been there, we've all done that, we've all seen it. But it is an interesting thing, isn't it? This idea of motivation and what can help you do it. And the thing for me is finding something that resonates. And I don't say that from an entitled perspective of like, oh, I don't do anything unless it makes my willy hard. Like, I don't mean it in a scummy way like that. It's literally, why would I do this unless I'm digging it? Because people ask me to do all kinds of things. That's one of the things that's pretty funny about being a YouTuber at times. You get messages being like, oh, you're going to do this and this and this and this and this. And you sit there thinking, why? Why the fuck would I want to do that? What do you think I am, dude? Do you think I just sit around here? I'm some kind of cipher? I'm some keygen that sits around on a PC waiting to impress random strangers? And the reality is, you can't make something for everybody. And you shouldn't try, you know? And especially if it's coming at the price of your enjoyment. But money changes that, you know? If you're making money being miserable ain't so miserable, is it? Because you can suffer it a bit longer. But if you're not making money and you're miserable, you should change it. And the one thing in this life that I think is the most important is joy. Joy for me is the goal nowadays in almost everything that I do. And you might be thinking, well, I've listened to you speak for the last 2 hours, Mr. Englishman, and you might be the most joyless, soulless, aggressive and argumentative person on this entire platform. To you, I say, touché, sir, and fuck off. But you have to find your own joy in life, you know, in everything that you do. And it doesn't matter what you're doing. You can find joy in the smallest triumph, in the smallest victory, and it can make it worth doing. It can make it worth your while. You know, if something makes you smile, and something stimulates that part of your brain that tells you that you achieved something that's meaningful, that to me is the thing that makes the most sense. So nowadays, I don't even look at it from the perspective of like, oh, this is a really hard game, maybe people will need this. I don't look at it from the perspective of, oh, I can play this game really well, maybe people will think I'm cool, or whatever some people do. Because you see that a lot, don't you? The conceit that YouTubers all do it for the ego. Like the idea of you need people to tell you nice comments to make you feel good. Dude, that's the funniest shit to me. I don't give a single fuck what anybody thinks about anything I do, really. And I know that sounds really callous and really like, oh, thanks, Chris, throw me under the bus. But it's not meant to be that way. It's like, I care about the people that like my channel as a person, and I care about what they say when it's in context to things that I find are meaningful, but the way I see myself and the way I see my work, like, I care about how I feel about it, you know? And I care about the critique of it too. Because sometimes the people that don't like you and sometimes the people that think that something's not as good as it can be, those are the people that help you the most. Because those are the people that show you there's a problem that you've been blinded to. And if somebody really likes you, they'll be willing to be that person. And it can be really difficult to be that person sometimes because, you know, most creators can get really, really defensive when people critique what they do. I know I have in the past. And it's one of those things that you work on every day because it's really, really hard. But it comes from a good place. And even if it comes from a bad place, sometimes people who don't like you are keying into something that is unlikable about you. And as much as you might immediately be like, oh, that guy sucks, eat my fat dick, you need to take a moment, don't you, and calm down, don't think about it emotionally, and then look into it and be like, does this person have a point? Is there anything to this? Or are they just doing this to feel better about something in their life that's lacking? Because for every, like, bullshit troll, there's probably a pretty valid, you know, concern about something you're doing. And I pay attention to a lot of my criticisms. And I agree with some of them too. And I don't agree with them because I want to placate it and I want it to stop, and I'm using it as a reverse psychology so I can seek out those platitudes. I agree with them because I think everything is inherently flawed. But I also think that sometimes those flaws that somebody doesn't like are the very things that some people really do like. Like, it comes back to commentary, doesn't it? Right now I've been talking for 2 hours. And we've just got the rocket launcher, by the way, the wardrobe launcher. This weapon is really, really good, but I would recommend you don't use it here. Save as many of these rockets as you can for the tough sequences. This is literally a tutorial that is baiting you into wasting your best weapon, and I would advocate you don't do this. That was interesting. For a second there, I thought the audio was out, but it's not. It just looked weird. But this area has a ton of mobility. You can move. There's no reason to get cornered here. This is nowhere near as difficult as some sequences coming up later on, so do not use your rockets. The rockets are just... they're bait, basically. They're bait to make you suffer later on. And I fell into this hook, line, and sinker. Like, there's no reason to do this other than it looks amazing. And I really do like this level visually, but some of the stuff coming up is... well, it's straight arse cheeks, basically. It's about as arse cheeks as it gets. But let's talk about commentary, because you've been listening to it now for a while, and you're either used to it or you're not. And I do think that there's a few ways that it goes with commentary. And it's an interesting thing on YouTube, isn't it? I remember YouTube when it didn't have much commentary. I also remember YouTube when commentary became the standard that you had to do. And I remember that transition that you go through yourself on how you feel about it. And I remember people's reactions to me and how they felt about it and how that developed. And I remember all of this stuff. I retain this stuff because it's fascinating to me, and my brain has this habit of remembering all the information that won't help you in life and not remembering all the shit that might have helped me on some fucking important tests. But you can't help that your brain remembers nothing but Pokemon and porn stars instead of the periodic table, can you? So, at the beginning, of course, commentary wasn't really standardized at all. It was done by people trying to add an extra dimension to separate themselves from the people not doing it. Back in the Dazzle days, back in the interesting direct capture where some people chose to literally record their televisions. And commentary made a huge difference, I think. But you know, if you go back into those early commentaries, when you go back and you look at people like Blame Truth and Xcal and some of those other people, like even though Xcal at first wasn't doing commentary at all. And people like Slow Beef wasn't he? He was one of the first. And there was another one as well. Somebody did a Let's Play, I think it was Kingdom Hearts many years ago. But adding that commentary on there was a pretty of a bold step. And ahead of its time. The first I saw doing it was next-gen walkthroughs, which is something I've talked about a decent amount. This is a really big fight, so I just used the Fab Glove here. Again, you don't have to use this, guys, but I wanted to kind of just get rid of this one, because I don't like the geometry here, even though thinking back, I should have saved this, because this is going to cost me later on, so if you're confident you can do this, and you can do this, this is not that difficult, look at all the barrels, I would absolutely recommend not using the Slap Glove here. But when I saw next-gen walkthroughs doing commentary, that was the thing that got me into all of this. And it changed my mind in so many ways. I just thought it was it was that next level, wasn't it? I think all of us when we were younger have tried writing a game fac at one point, where you went into Notepad and you were worried about the formatting and how it looked more so than what you wrote. And you were writing about a game that you'd played a lot, but you probably didn't know that much about. You thought you did, but you really didn't. And then you're adding a bit of personality and character to it, and not many people finish the things they started, because who finishes what they start nowadays? People just start 50 things and finish none of them. It's the easiest way to get quite a portfolio of empty, barren, unfinished work. But I think it elevated it and it changed the game in a way to me that I don't think anything has come along since and done it, unless, you know, you count VTubers as something interesting, which, personally, I think VTubing is weird as fuck. And I don't mean that from, like, an offensive, you're a weirdo for doing it. I mean that in just the, I don't understand it. Like, the only thing I get with that is they don't want to do face cam, so instead they want to have people connecting to some visual image, and instead they're connecting to that. That, principally, I don't get. What I do get about that is when people use boobs, because boobs are awesome and everyone loves boobs, right? And I also understand the cute ones, because when you're cute, you'll get people who think you're cute and that will help. It's like kittens, isn't it? It's like fucking small puppies. Everybody just gushes over them, and who knows? You know, it could really be a robot sent from the future to come back and destroy us all with like AIDS-infested feces that it fires out of its eyes. But if it's a cute little puppy, we're all fucking doomed. This is the hardest level in the game, guys. This level is absolutely ridiculous. So get ready for it. This is going to be claustrophobic, filled with environmental hazards that chunk the living fuck out of you, and all kinds of rooms with checkpoints that I wish were slightly better because they make you earn it. This is really, really tricky. Especially if you don't have any of that wardrobe launcher to save your ass. But it's not too bad, but it's definitely a step up. Like, I died on each boss, and I died once or twice on Beachin 2, and then I died on that one subway level. This level, I died like 10 times. Like, it really, really steps up, especially when the Gimps turn up. The Gimp is by far the most fucking ridiculously broken enemy in the game. And it has a feature that I didn't even realise that it had, which is the Gimp will teleport to where you belt. It's not something like line of sight, it's not something about it needs to be proximity based. This motherfucker, if you belt in the vicinity of a Gimp, it just programs him to be exactly where you belted. And they block the belt too. And they put him with enemies where you need to use it to injure them. So it's really clever design, but it's really fucking mean, because these levels are super snug and tight and claustrophobic, and you're just getting your ass beat. So be real careful here, because this is way more demanding. And I mean, it's the hardest difficulty. It's supposed to be, you know. Bring it on. I just wish it was a bit more consistent, because then it wouldn't feel so fucking dirty. But back to commentary anyhow. I was getting beaten up by a salaryman then, I didn't even realise. Commentary changed everything. It really did. And then what ended up happening is, what you generally notice on the flow of commentary is, people start doing commentary and they're not that confident in it, so it's a little bit stilted and awkward. And they talk about the game exclusively. Their whole commentary is just walk forward, shoot this, turn around, shoot that. It might as well be a transcription or an annotation, you know? These people have done closed captions before closed captions were a thing. And here comes the Gimp. So the idea of the Gimp is you fire the Tailor boy's secondary function, and then, the Tailor maid, sorry, and then you shoot him, and then you stick him again. He has the same weakness as the dude that teleports around dropping the bombs everywhere. So you just stick him again, shoot him while he's stunned, and then loop the stun. However, this creature, if it's alive when you belt, will cock block your belt. It is a programmed response, and you might see it too. And it doesn't matter, guys, if you try and whip a box, he will teleport in front of you. And this is the checkpoint right here. This is where it gets really, really awkward, because you have to go through a bunch of rooms with environmental hazards, lots of enemies, and the checkpoint here is fucking terrible. So be very careful, because this whole area is annoying. And I'm just going to skip these enemies, because this was pissing me off, dude. But I come up here, I shoot the barrel, I drop down here, I take a little bit of a chunk from the fire, and watch this. If you whip this, you get belted. Watch him. See that? That's what he does. He is a programmed response enemy. So if you ever belt in the vicinity of a Gimp, he's going to do that. And then when you come in here, you have a bit of a big fight, and it is intimidating, but as long as you come in with some decent HP, you'll be absolutely fine. And this is the first demanding sequence, and it's just because of all the fire, all the enemies, and the checkpoint is not in this room. The checkpoint is all the way before we went through any of the rooms. So just stay mobile, swap between your weapons. And there's no shame in losing here, guys, because this is definitely a next level of difficulty to what you've been doing. Nothing in the game will challenge you like this. And it is fun. But it just feels like it comes out of left field and sucker punches you. And it's interesting too, if they make DLC, it'll probably be all really hard like this and really crank it up. But right now, that Gimp is going to be an issue. We need to stop him. This is so bad as well. The reason the Gimp is the hardest enemy is because he stops your movement. And anything that stops your movement's real bad. And when they put 2 or 3 of these enemies in a room, this is when it gets really, really... oh, it's bad. But keep moving too. Never stand still. Movement is so important in a shooter like this. Because if you can't do it, you're a sitting duck and you'll just bleed. But this is the end of the fight, this, I think, once you take down the streaker. Oh, the flasher. No, here we go. This is the final bit. And there's another opportunity to use the wardrobe gun. Which is a really, really cool one, but I shouldn't have done it, really. That being said, you come up here, you get another checkpoint right there. And then even this section going forward, this is really tough as well. So these 2 checkpoints back to back are very demanding. And it's just because of this. You touch this shit, it takes way too long to extinguish it. It's not satisfying to do. And even when you think you've done it, it comes back. So sometimes you'll back up and get hit by it, and it gets really annoying. And the Gimp's just... like, look at that. The Gimp is... I want to call it a terrible enemy, but it's actually a really good enemy, but it's really frustrating. Like, this thing, if this guy turned up in more fights, this game would be way more difficult. But I don't think it should come up in multiple numbers. I don't think you should ever fight 3 of those guys. And it's just when they start, like, groundhogging you. Oh, not groundhog. What is that guy called? Junkrat, right? I don't know why I called him groundhog. That's interesting. And that was interesting as well, getting randomly gimped. But back to the tangent on commentaries. You start, you're awkward, you're on topic. You are aggressively on topic. That's the way it works. Then you realise after you do enough commentaries that you're saying pretty much the same things and that's not that creative, that interesting, and if anything, it can get a bit counterintuitive sometimes because it can be demotivating to continue doing it, and you can feel redundant because all you're doing is regurgitating what you've already said. That is usually the linear path of commentary. And then you'll come to a crossroads then where you decide to start talking about other topics, or you double down on talking about the game. And what will happen here is not always guaranteed, you know, there's some wiggle room. But what generally tends to happen is you'll get people that fall in love with the tangents, with the topics, with the off-topic brand, and you'll get the people that rebel against it and really dislike it. And there aren't really any middle grounds there. So you'll ostracize the people that want you to talk about the game, even though there's nothing to say because the game's fucking easy and brain dead. And you'll excite the people who aren't that interested in you talking about the game, but they like the storytelling and they like the tangents and they like the silliness. This is another difficult room as well here, guys. You want to use this corner as best as you can and whip all the projectiles that can actually see you. And you'll be absolutely fine. And then what ends up happening is you get to the point where maybe you lean on the tangent too much, and it generally becomes either a bit of a podcast slash a stream of consciousness slash you're talking about absolute bollocks the whole time and you barely feel like you get a chance to talk about the game because games have become so easy, why talk about them when they're literally not that interesting? So then you might even go back and correct and auto-correct back to talking towards the game just because you want to try and be a bit more on topic. And then eventually you'll find out a balance. You will work up a balance where you kind of do a bit of both in such a way that hopefully everybody can be a little bit happier than they would be in isolation. And that's one of the paths, isn't it? Another path is if you stay talking about the game the whole time, you come off as a bit dry and a bit fucking boring. And people will be like, I like the gameplay, I like, you know, certain moments, but fundamentally, you just feel like somebody's got you on like a soundboard and you just keep saying the same things. And what will happen there is eventually people will get bored of you. Because you're not saying anything interesting, you're saying the same things, and you're not really needed. Especially as games get easier. But, by the way guys, this right here is the most demanding room in the game. So I'm going to skip it. All the way down here, set off the fight, and then come into this little cave. Do not believe this cave. This cave is weird. Not only does it stop them from coming in here, but it also doesn't stop them from attacking you through the roof of it. So you are safe in here until you are not. And the strategy is simple. Kill as many people as you can to hit the checkpoint. Once you hit the checkpoint, you're going to be able to go forward and trip the next part. Problem is, this is a massive fight. It is a massive fight against multiple enemies, and we don't have any of the big answers. We don't have the Fab Glove, we don't have the wardrobe launcher. You have to systematically take these guys out. And the reason this is so frustrating is because if you go out and you do a normal fight, there are snowballs. Massive boulder-sized snowballs that spawn randomly and come careening down this ski slope, and if they hit you, they chunk you for damage. So not only do you have to fight a bunch of enemies in a really bad encounter that's really claustrophobic, but you also have to contend with all kinds of environmental hazards too. And if you do this slowly, you have to contend with them while you're fighting coming down here. And the best way to do it, I found, is to just hit the pedal, come all the way down here, put up with all these enemies, isolate and destroy, and then as soon as you get your checkpoint, that's when things are going to start getting even worse, because you're going to have to deal with the consequence of all the damage you took. And if you can do this a little better than I'm doing it, guys, and not get down to 20 life, you'll have a much easier time here. But this is a long fight, there's a ton of invisible walls, there's a ton of like getting hit through walls. It just feels really unbalanced. And it is easily the hardest part of the game. And the snowmen that you can see, sometimes those snowmen will break and drop mojitos, sometimes they will break and spawn more enemies. So the snowmen are not to be trusted because you never know what you're going to get. They Forrest Gump the shit out of you. And then you have enemies that can come in here, enemies that can attack through the roof of here, enemies that can't quite get in front of here, and it turns into this awkward Rainbow Six Siege competition of pixel peeking this corner and nobody having any fun. But do not despair, because when you die on the checkpoint, it gives you full HP. Which is really handy. And then this part is just annoying. So we are going to come down this ski slopey thing, and then we're going to turn around and we're going to open up all the snowmen, because I'm going to try and build as much fab meter as I can. And because we've got a checkpoint, it means that we can now go back on all the stuff that we missed and use the energy that we generate by beating these enemies to get closer to that win button. And hopefully, during the final fight, which is a huge gauntlet that's super claustrophobic and it's really mean, bad movement, tons of really mobile enemies, almost nowhere to go, and being bombarded by multiple gimps, multiple people on the scooters, like it's fucking mean. But if you do this, you're going to take some damage because you're going to get hit by snowballs, you're going to get hit by enemies, but you're hopefully going to have the ability to kill a few people, and then once you've done that, you're going to have your fab, and then you'll be able to end the whole sequence. Because if you can do it, you get the final checkpoint and you do the level, and then you'll move on to the final boss. But the damage and the bleed that you take just getting your fab built up is a lot. It might be a better idea for some people to just go down there with full HP and do the fight. But I really wanted to come up with a more consistent and safer strategy, so this is kind of what I figured out. And I only failed it 2 times, I think, but those 2 times were frustrating because I was fighting for a long time. And we get some armor there as well, and we get another flasher. This is the guy you want to charge belt. Charge belt him, get the full stun, and then just mag dump him. That guy goes down really quickly. So now we've got a little bit of... We've lost 30 HP, we've got some swag, we've got 56% fab, but do you see this stupid snowball that keeps going down the hill? This thing's going to cause havoc. I don't know why I didn't attack those snowmen behind me just then. Am I going for these guys? Okay, I'm going for this guy. This is really frustrating, this, because of the angle. In order to get close enough to throw this at him, you have to get in range of his camera, which is just shit. This whole fucking room is dumb, if you ask me. Really frustrating. So now we're back to 34 HP, which is kind of trash, but you can do this sequence coming up without being hit. And I'm looking in every crevice to try and find some swag, try and find something. And there's going to be more enemies that spawn. And there's also going to be the opportunity to get an extra wardrobe bomb, which we're going to be using, I think, on the Gimps. But now we're at 64%, slowly getting closer to that win button. I don't think you can shoot these, I think you have to belt them. There's the woman with the gun, or with the ground texture, I should say. And for some reason, she can't hit up here because the geometry won't let her, so that's really bad, that, for that enemy. And there's a Gimp right there, boom. We stuck him immediately, we'll stick him again, and that will be enough of him. So they're not too bad when you get them like... But look at this, I'm getting bombed by spawning snowballs, like... This is just dumb, this. They need to get rid of those snowballs, they don't add anything. It's like an idea that doesn't work. It's not cute, it's not fun, it's not fair. All it does is war of attrition the player. And this level is hard enough, trust me guys, this is a tough level. You don't need any gimmicks for this level to be tough, it's already been made very tough. And you constantly have to listen out for that noise of them spawning, and constantly have to listen out to dodging them. I think it was a mistake, personally. And I wouldn't be surprised if this gets touched. But take out the guys with the suits. There's a guy who's got a camera. I'm going to throw all my gnomes at him from a distance. And we're going to jump on top of the ski lift here to get that ammunition. Getting that oh, the Gimp got me. Look at that. That dude is so accurate. Do you think that chain should reach that far? I feel like the Gimp should have to come to you and chain you up. I think the chain should be close range. Being able to just fully, like, full screen chain you like that comes across as a bit dumb. And I think that would isolate his weird movement too when he crawls around. I think you could make his crawling maybe a little bit more zigzag, a little bit more erratic. But now we're going to make the jump here. So boom, get on top, and then from here you can jump directly over to where we need to be. And that's what we wanted. So now we need 20% fab, and we have the ability to kill one wave pretty much with a rocket. And that's it. I don't think we can get anything more other than those two scarecrows, bloody hell, those two snowmen, sorry, that I missed earlier on. But I think I'm coming back for here. Just double checking that I've got everything picked up, because this is going to be the we go in and we get shit done mode. So I cruise up here. There's the two snowmen. There's a mojito, puts us up to 40, or a mocktail, sorry. And that's it. That's every resource we've got now. So we've got 5 swag, 40 HP, 80 fab, and 1 rocket. And we now have to go and do the 2 to 3 waves that's coming up. And the first wave, I think, is either Gimps or Scooters. And you can die really quick. And the room that they pin you in is terrible. If it was this whole slope, you'd be fine. But they trap you right down here. And look at all the snowmen. So we're going to whip these snowmen and try and bait some enemies out to fill up our gauge extra. But be careful of the snowballs. The snowballs are trying to push us down here. Luckily the enemies are quite aggressive on this difficulty, so they're just going to chase us. If you go too far forward here though, you will trigger the fight, and of course you're going to get hit by the stupid snowballs if you don't pay attention. Like, it's just dumb. Very hard to understand the logic that went into this shitfest. But we're at 84% now. There's a healing item. We've got some more swag. Hopefully we should be okay here. Should have been charging the belt then. I don't know why I wasn't. This guy could have... Yeah, he hit me. That should not have happened, that. I should have been charging the belt. That was bad play. So as you can see, just doing this is frustrating enough. And that's when they trap you in, right there. So immediately, we've got 2 Gimps and 2 guys throwing suitcases. I get rid of one of the guy throwing a suitcase, and I get rid of the 2 Gimps with the rocket. Here come all of the scooter boys. This is where you're going to die. If you're going to die, it's right here. But if you can take one of them out, you'll get 100% and activate it immediately if you can. And then this will carry you through the rest of the fight. Because it's so powerful, but you have to be aware. You have to just slap the shit out of everybody immediately. And then when the spawns come in, slap them immediately too. And never stop slapping. Slap like your life depends on it. Because You could have took them out, the scooter boys, if you wanted to, but they kill you so easily. If it was going to go wrong, it was going to be then. But as long as you do what I did just then, as long as you trigger the malfunction right then, all you need to do here is finish off these last few people. And because you get your health back for doing what you do, I think the Fab Glove heals you. I'm not entirely certain. I might have picked something up. We're now in a position to fight the rest of these dudes, and it's not a problem. And when you watch it on this video, it might not look like that big of a deal, but I can guarantee you guys, it's a really unrealistic room, this, and it's all on like 1 or 2 checkpoints. And it's just a combination of, it's too claustrophobic, there's not enough real room for the amount of people they fire at you, and the ambient snowballs just ruin everything. But once you've done that, you're on the final boss and you don't have to worry. That is by far the most challenging part of the game. So if you can get past through the fire and Noice, you've done the game. Because the final boss is tricky, and you can die on him. I died, I think, twice. But he's only hard because he takes 15 minutes to die. And immediately, the song is awesome. And the rhythm of this fight is simple. Put on the tailor-made and shoot his sled. Shoot his flying device. Do not shoot him or it'll tell you off. Make sure you shoot the glowing eye of the device, and then dodge all of the scissor projectiles that he's doing. And eventually, when you do enough damage, he's going to come down, and now you're going to start having to hit him with a different weapon. So he puts on the flame jacket here, and he's going to start kicking around and casting all kinds of different projectiles. So the first projectile is a group of circles, and if you jump through them, you're fine. Don't get too close to this dude, because if he touches you, he hurts you. And you don't want to be victim to his like active drop kick and he's moving on the ground bullshit. All of this is damaging. But do you see the damage you don't do to this boss compared to how much damage I was doing on that sled? Like, this is, to me, the damage here is too low. I should not be playing Kovacs on this guy's face and shooting him for this long. Like, he should be stunned by now. I'm outplaying him completely. He hasn't hit me, I've hit him 1,000 times, and unfortunately, he's just got way too much fucking life. And the patterns are all pretty basic. The only real danger is when he does the circles and you're in a bad position, you get bad RNG and you can't get through the gap. But then he turns into his sled form again, so put the tailor-made back on and then shoot his sled and dodge his needles. And it's just the same thing. Track the shit out of him. Keep your gun on him at all times, but watch your environment so you're not stood on any of the seams. And then as soon as you put him down, he's going to transform, different word, there you go. He's going to transform, sorry, into his water coat, I think. And his water coat, this one runs around firing bubbles at you. And you want to be careful because he tries to run you over in this mode. And you can whip the water balloons too if you want to. But I focused on just completely keeping my distance and vacuuming the shit out of him. But if you're too far away, you will not vacuum him. And he drops a bunch of these like Tailor dummy clone things which can be killed with the dye gun, and I recommend killing them because they fire briefcases at you and they can be really annoying, so shut them down as soon as they turn up if you can. It will prolong the fight a little bit. This fight's already too long, so don't worry about that. Just focus on being clean and consistent, but keep the tracking on him. And it's the black one that spawns all the Tailor dummies, and then he goes back into his other form. So back onto the sled, bring out the Tailor, and then he's going to start trying to sting you now, doing dive bombs on the vehicle, and then he's just going to keep mixing in all the other moves. And most of these don't touch you as long as you strafe consistently. And when he comes and dive bombs you, all you need to do is like side jump or just side strafe and you're fine. But if you're too close to him when he starts it, he's got really good tracking then and he'll hit you. But there's your first checkpoint. If you die at any point, you have to do all of that again, so don't do it. And then this is when the boss starts to go into some interesting gimmicks for a first playthrough, but it overstays its welcome on this difficulty by a large margin. So they activate the Fab Glove, they want you to slap him, then there's the glorious betrayal of what's going on and the explanation for what's happening. And then this dude turns you into one of the salarymen, one of the fantastic grey suit dudes. And you have to throw suitcases at these clones of yourself. And this is actually kind of awkward, this, because the people you're throwing at, they have a habit of going left and then going right. and then every so often your stamina goes down and you fall asleep. And it's just you can't really fail this, I don't think. But it's one of those gimmicky moments that's funny the first time, that is probably quite tedious if you have to do it a lot. But get rid of all the clones, and then I think you get turned into the moped guy in a moment. So now that that's done, you're on the next phase of his attacks, where he does a little bit more dangerous and a little bit more screen-filling abilities, but his sled goes down just as fast if you can keep your targeting on it. And this is where good aim comes in handy here, because if you can keep your aim on him, he goes down way faster than he does with almost any other gun. And I tried the wet one, I tried like the launcher and stuff, and this one to me seems to be the most consistent and the most fun. But right here, he's going to hit us again, and he's going to turn us into the Tony Hawk sequence. So this is kind of funny when you first do it, but after that, it's, I don't know. Like, I actually come from Tony Hawk on PlayStation 1, so I used to love those games, but this is just not quite there. I like the idea of it, it's very silly, but it's definitely, it outstays its welcome on this difficulty. And you have to do all the mannequins, and then you have to get, I think it's 120,000 score, and if you can do that, you'll be fine. There is a secret up there too, if you're interested in getting all the secrets. But the idea is simple. You just want to get to an area where you can do a trick into a grind, into a trick into a grind, and keep doing that. It's the same thing you could do in Tony Hawk 2 and 3 and 4 and whatnot. Trick, grind, trick, grind, trick, grind, trick, grind. And if you do that, your multiplier goes really high, and you'll get it in no time at all. And the best place to do it is where the final mannequin is, up there on that cannon. If you go towards that cannon, there's a bunch of different rails you can go up and down on. And I'm going to go to it right now. And I messed it up just then, unfortunately, but I see where the target is, and I see that that's where I'm supposed to go, so I'm hopefully going to try and get it here. Oh, is this going to take me in a circle? Yeah, it is. Rip. But this is what Tony Hawk's was all about, doing shit like that. Repeatedly going between all your different moves to maximise on the points, build your special, do your special moves, and manuals, reverts, you know, everything you can think of. This is me realising where I'm supposed to go here. Music's so good though, you don't really mind. But once you get up this bit here is the perfect place. Oh, I messed it up again. If I can finally get up here, this is where you will get the most points. I like that they have the gap bonuses. I think that's really funny. You can tell the person that made this liked Tony Hawk. But like, look at this. You can just keep doing what I'm doing here. Back and forth, and it's really easy to do. You could absolutely chain this until you get a preposterous score if you wanted to. But I didn't need to, that was enough. 60k right there, and then we can get back to the boss fight. So again, same concept. Back on the sled, different moves though. This move is probably his most dangerous move, because there's times when it just comes out in a really weird bounce, and if it hits you, it does, I think it's 10 damage each of these projectiles. And because they're so squirrely, they do hit you a decent amount if you're not careful. But once he comes down, you're going to hit the checkpoint, and it's going to go to the final phase of the fight where he roids out, and then this bit is just shit. The previous section overstays its welcome and it's too long, but I like that you can dodge his moves, and I like that it's his aim check. This is just not good. This dude fires at you for like a whole minute, then they airdrop ammunition in, then they airdrop platforms in, and then you use the platforms and the ammunition to kill the boss, right? And you might be thinking, oh, that's like Resident Evil, Chris, when you kill the Tyrant. Only, the Tyrant takes 1 rocket, whereas this guy takes like 80 fucking rockets, and it's super boring. And I don't get it. Watch the damage here. Like, the damage is absurd. This guy should have died in like 5 rockets. Just make it so that he's got more moves, and you dodge him for about a whole minute, and then you get the ammo dropped in, you pick the rocket up, and you kill him. This is just bizarre, this. Because not only are you trying to dodge a bunch of random weird moves that hit the entire platform at times, but you're also waiting for ammunition to be dropped that you have to then go and get while he's attacking you, and then the very platforms that knock you up to enable you to do damage to him, they hurt you. Those platforms fire out pins. They're like pin cushions or something. So you spend most of this, or I do at least, hiding next to this gun here, and every so often he hits you anyway with his massive splash attacks and all this bullshit he's doing. So this goes from being a cool idea with all these cool attacks to you literally sit here for 5 minutes being bored. And to me, the biggest failure you can do in a boss fight is to fucking bore me. But that's what they've done. And you can fix this, you can tweak this. This is just a balance issue. This boss does not need this HP. It's not that interesting, you know? Trim the fat, cut it down, make it intense, make it enjoyable, make it brief. It's just weird. Super weird. And even hitting these platforms doesn't feel very fun. Because you have to actually jump onto them instead of walking up to them and being bounced off. So it becomes this war of attrition. And I don't want to shit on this game, guys, needlessly, because I think it's exceptional and I really recommend it, but you've got to be critical. This is not good enough for how good this game is. And additionally, it's not hard either. It's just lame. And I do know that a lot of people, you know, they say, oh, it's not hard, it's X. They say that to everything, don't they? I'm not a person like that, you know. If you want some hard stuff, I can recommend you to some hard stuff, man. There's some hard stuff out there. But this, to me, is not right. Do this right, and I think it could be difficult. Like, these attacks, I don't mind any of these attacks, really, outside of getting hit on next to that laser gun. I don't think you should be able to sit next to that laser gun anyway. I don't think this should be accessible. I think you should have to be there and on the fat of the land dodging this. But make it so these moves do like 50 damage. And have them happen a lot. So have him do like 5 different moves back to back to back to back, and they're all kind of intense to dodge until you know what you're doing. And make it so that surviving his salvo is the hard part. And then they drop the fucking missile, you go up and you kill him instantly. You know? Nobody wants to see the same move repeated 10 times that wasn't interesting the first time. And you might be able to even whip those, or you might be able to use a weapon to stop these abilities. And again, guys, there might be something in this boss fight I didn't understand and I wasn't using correctly that can make it a lot better, and all of this makes sense. And if that's the case, then I take back everything I've said, and that's awesome. But the game didn't convey it well enough to me, and I wasn't at that level to notice it, you know? So who knows, but that's the end of the fight anyhow, guys, and that's the end of the game. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed it, and you take care now.